What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday. Unfortunately, Tyler is not with us this week. Otherwise, you'd have that nice deep voice following Johnny's mid-tone.
I don't know.
I don't know either. This week, we have Paul, which we learned his name is actually Paul, despite Johnny's introduction to the world as Paulie.
I call him Skinny Jeans Paulie. And he's not just a woodworker to me or craftsman. He's one of my friends. And this is one of my first true. I mean, I have like Jason and those guys that are IG friends, but Paulie's been with me for long before vintage. And I've been dying to get the kid outside of his shell and to tell his story. And I think it's, he does reclaimed, he does furniture, he does anything that he wants to put his mind to. But
John, I'm gonna stop you for a second. You wanted to get him out of his shell, and for anyone that's about to listen to this, Johnny did just that. I mean, he came out of his shell in a big way and went down some really, really deep conversations. I mean, my head is pretty screwed up right now, so
it was a good pod. We went deep. It wasn't just about woodworking.
No. Life. What else? Forget it. You guys just listen. You'll figure it out. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. The folks at Duration invite you to compare poly ash products, beveled siding to any other beveled siding out there. No other product checks the number of boxes of what today's builders and building owners are looking for. John, you gonna help me out? Stable?
Check.
Sustainability?
Check.
Long lengths?
Check.
Looks just like real wood?
Check.
No clearance requirements?
Check.
No end sealing?
Check.
Paint any color with regular latex paint?
Check.
Full line of complementary moldings?
Check.
Custom capabilities?
Check.
John's son coming in to check to make sure he's
My wife's saying goodnight.
Oh. Well, the list goes on. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com and be sure to check them out on IG.
Hey, can I start this off with, I got an email last night from Jonathan Ward from Icon. And he's like, hey, listen to the podcast. Loved it. The guy Nook. Loved that. He goes, I can't believe they mentioned me. Wanted to let you guys know that you've inspired me, and I bought 11 acres in Texas to build an Icon style home.
No,
so it's really cool. And he's trying to salvage a barn from Pennsylvania to put on the premises.
There he goes.
So it's
well, now that I know he listens, now I can tell him the story that I put that leather jacket in and out of a shopping cart like 18 times. And I was like, I just can't spend $600 on a leather jacket.
It's not even a bad number.
It wasn't, but I didn't I was like, how do I know if it fits?
Oh,
like that was. I
think you can return it with him.
I was like, if it was Trunk Club, you can send it back in the box, and then all of a sudden they give you credit for the next one. So, John, if you can come out and just measure me and then make one, I'm all for it.
Dude, I couldn't believe you emailed me. I was going to bed and I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's Jonathan Ward. So I told him, I think he's mentioned every other podcast.
Right?
Which is pretty accurate.
That is true. What's up, Polly?
I'm good. Yeah.
You doing good?
I'm good. Yeah. It's a good day.
You don't do a lot of Zoom meetings, huh?
I did some on my phone with my church, and that was it. Other than that, I live in a hole.
Well, why do you have this professional microphone?
This is borrowed by somebody. These headphones are borrowed, and I bought this computer 4 days ago.
Wait, what?
That's a true story.
I was gonna say I didn't think you had one when you told me the other day.
No, my wife has this old MacBook, and I have an iPad Pro, and I text Johnny can I do it on my phone? And he's like, no, you need to. so then I called my brother, I asked my brother, hey, can I borrow your computer? And he's like, no, go buy a computer. Like you run a business, go buy a freaking computer.
Amazing. This is like a $3,000 endeavor for him to get the podcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
So yeah, that's who I am. And I love it. After this, I'm returning the computer.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. I'm actually like,
We're like,
oh,
hey, do you
wow,
have Google Chrome? He's like, no, I can't download that because I got to return this thing as factory as possible.
I didn't download any picture. No, but then I started using it. I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is what the world lives, with.
Well, I thought Pro is pretty. I mean, that's pretty close. But that thing's killer. Like for you being able to sketch everything.
Yeah, because I can sketch, and I have the apps that I want, and my billing apps on there. So it's actually, I can bring it right to somebody's house. I take a picture with it, throw the picture up into Sketch, and write notes, whatever. So I couldn't live without that, to be honest with you. And for some reason, I've just never flicked it over to like the MacBook Pro. But anyway, it's good now.
Well, we popped your cherry.
I feel like this is like Festool. Once you buy one thing, now you're just gonna have everything. He's gonna go buy a desktop, the Apple Watch, the Apple Watch Pro. Just gonna go iPhone.
If I knew what they were, if I knew what any of them were, then I probably would. I'd be like, yeah, I need that. And then I just see my friends, using something or wearing something. I'm like, what's that? Like, what is that? Like, it's called an Apple Watch. It's been out for 8 years. Like, you should probably know this stuff.
Paulie, for those that don't know who you are, let's get an introduction from you.
Yeah, so my real name, is Paul Charette, not Paulie, but
I call him Skinny Jeans Paulie. That's how he's on my phone.
Most of the world. Yeah. And
do you like being called Paulie?
Well, it's not like a like or dislike, but nobody in my life, there is nobody since I was 6 years old till now who's ever called me Paulie except for John. And for some reason, this has become a thing. not to mention Skinny Jeans Paulie, which I think if anybody like who I knew said this to me, I'd probably be like, let's fight. Like, I don't know how to fight, but we're gonna fight now,
So that's a no.
But no, but the truth is I really don't. It's fine. It's sort of, maybe I've adopted it by now. I don't know.
So Paul, for those that don't know you.
Yeah, Paul Charette, and my company's called Wood Theory Design. And yeah, I've had that for 6 years, I think. Yeah, about 6 years. And I'm mostly doing reclaimed woodworking, furniture, and kind of custom woodworking, and sort of breaking into this artistic side of woodworking elements.
John, I feel like you can add to that because he's your man. He's your dude.
That I've been calling by the wrong name for 6-7 years.
Yeah, we're gonna correct that today.
Dude, I even forward his contact info as Skinny Jeans Paulie. It's in
my
phone.
One client, I forget who it was. He walked in and I was wearing skinny jeans and working on his house, and he knew me as Skinny Jeans Paulie because he was John's client. And he's like, "You must be Skinny Jeans Paulie." Like, yeah, I had no. Like, yeah, I guess that's what I go by now.
Well, didn't you also have the other kid that's God, I don't know his name. He wears glasses, does stories occasionally. Jay something. I'm awful at names. This is great for listening.
Tells stories?
Yeah, remember he does some stories here and there.
Somebody who worked for me?
No, he's a GC. He met with me a couple years ago when I was doing Ivy.
Yeah.
I think he related you as Skinny Jeans Paulie as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no pop to that story after we got through it all.
That was the end of the story?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. I'm tired today.
That's a terrible story.
Well, I'm going to add to it. John, you do reclaimed in almost all, if not most of your projects.
We try.
Right. And Paul is your go-to for that. You do a lot of creative reclaimed timber work in your projects. And
he's my reclaim artisan.
Right. And you've talked about that. You've talked about Paul, you've talked about people that you get to work with as subcontractors and things like that as artists, like your collection of artists. And Paul's been one of them for a long time, and he's for you and for what your product is and for what I like, even just for what I know of you and what your product is out there. Paul's a big part of that.
Well, you did what Paul, you used Paul on what?
We did one in South Boston. We did one in Westwood.
Yeah.
Paul, where did it all start for you? I know when I hooked up with you.
Yeah, I mean, the full story is I started in building, and from a young age, that was pretty much all I ever wanted to do. And even when I was a kid, that's all I really did was make stuff, and most of it fell apart or was useless in some way or another. But I just kept at it and kept it was always a passion for me to make something out of wood. And I also had this passion for wood, even young, which sounds odd. But in fact, when I was about 12, I begged my dad for a skill saw. And he bought me my first skill saw when I was 12 years old. And my mom, she was all nervous about this endeavor and me cutting my hands off or fingers off or something like this. And I remember using it under my dad's supervision. And then that night, I cleaned it and I put it in my bed next to me, and I slept with the skill saw. It was like a kid sleeping with his baseball glove. That's a true story. That's how much I was I was almost born to create something or make something or whatever. And then I had my first job when I was before I had a license, so 15, a summer job working for really a master craftsman. And he did additions and smaller projects, but he was like a perfectionist and a purist, and he was an old army guy, tough guy, and taught me a lot. And so I worked with him for a couple of years. And even from the first day, I was like hooked. This was like everything I wanted to do. And I remember being 15, and I could still tell you everything I did that first day. Like I could tell you the make and model of his truck, what I did, what I screwed up on, and all of this. And that to me was like, that's kind of where the passion began. So then fast forward a little bit, and even this passion for wood that I had, I would get wood as a kid and I would keep it in my bedroom drying, and I would like check the moisture content of the wood like every couple weeks, and I would log it and stuff like that. And so my room, which at that point was in the basement, it just had like piles of wood in my bedroom, and I would like keep logs of the moisture of each piece of wood. And I loved wood for some reason. It kind of spoke to me or whatever. And I worked in the building industry I moved out of my parents' house. I started going to Fitchburg State, or Fitchburg University now, but State at the time, kind of part-time, working part-time. And I ended up working for a builder, and that's who I worked for 12 years. And we built like start to finish. He was a developer, builder, houses, mostly in like the Central Mass area and stuff like that. And so that was really my coming of age and learning the business. And he was not like a craftsman or even much of a woodworker at all. He was a businessman, really. And he hired me under sort of like a guy who who knew what it was going on. And within 2 years, that guy moved on, and he said, okay, you can have the job, like you're up. So he was the businessman, and I was kind of the trial by fire builder. And whether I knew how to do it or not, I was going to do it. So I got a lot of opportunity in those 12 years, a lot. And mostly in the end, by the end, I ran a framing crew for a little while, kind of under him. That you know, I did all right with that, and we built a couple houses, but by the end, I was mostly digging dirt. And he had kind of transitioned his company into an excavation company. So we had control, like I was kind of acting PM on the projects. But my main job was actually digging. And so for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, I was in an excavator, digging cellar holes, driveways, clearing lots, stuff like that. Always kind of maintaining this little passion I had for wood, for woodworking, for making stuff. I'd make stuff in my dad's back. We built, when I was a kid, he and I built together a wood shop, like this small wood shop in the back. So I had a place where I'd buy tools. 17 years old, 18 years old, I remember buying tools, which is like kind of funny now to think of it, you know, going on Craigslist, sifting through those old paper Craigslist ad, looking for some table saw or joiner or whatever I could find. And so I'd make furniture, but I wouldn't really sell it. I couldn't sell it. Like, how do you sell furniture, especially at that point? And but I would go back there and I'd make furniture for hours and hours, like little things, whatever, tables, desks, things like this. And mostly giveaway stuff or stuff that I had dreamt up. And it didn't really matter if somebody wanted it or not. It was just like this passion to make it. It's like, you know, it's like I have an idea, let me make it. It didn't really matter if it was going to be good. It didn't matter if anybody approved. It didn't matter if I was going to make any money on it. Most of it cost me money, but I just had like this kind of passion to make something that was sort of in my head. And so anyway, move on a little bit to about 6, 7 years ago. And my cousin, Adam Brandt, who Johnny knows well, he's Art woodworking. So he and I grew up together. He had just branched off on his own, maybe about a year or so before. And he and I kind of shared some of the similar passions. And he called me one day, and I remember I was digging, and he said, "Hey, I have some work, and I'm kind of over my head with the amount of work, or I need help, basically. Could you give me 2 weeks?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." And so I talked to my boss. I said, "This is like kind of something I'd like to do, you know, not just to help him out, but he was kind of experiencing what I wanted to experience. And in addition to that, the job that he was on that he needed help was for Tom Brady in Brookline. So I was like, yeah, there's a little incentive to go. And so he had just started out. He got this kind of contract working at Tom's house. And so I went there, I gave him 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, he was like, I talked to him. I said, "This is kind of what I want to do, is go out on my own and start something." And he said, "Well, why don't you do it? I'll help you out a little bit. You help me out a little bit." He had just started, and he had work. In fact, he had already known Johnny back then and some other clients. And so we kind of teamed up a little bit under his company called Art. And we worked together for a few years, and I started Wood Theory with his help. Like, I kind of helped him with his company, and then he helped me with Wood Theory. And until today, we have separate shops and companies, and everything's separated, but Johnny was just there, our shops are together, and there's like, there's no walls or partitions. In fact, he has the office that I use sometimes, and I have the bathroom. So we're constantly in and out, and the guys who work for us are in and out of both spaces. And if it weren't for him, and I think in the same, I could probably speak for him a little bit, if it weren't for me being with him also, both of us wouldn't quite be where we are till now. And because he would get a big job and he would say, hey, could you and your guys come help me out? Or I'd get a big job and grab guys from him or even him. And so that's what kind of landed me wood theory on paper, but wood theory sort of developed to what it is now and is continuing to develop to what I want it to be through probably like the last 3 or 4 years. I think three, maybe 4 years, something like that. Yeah. And eventually I wanted to make furniture. This was like my passion. I wanted the wood. I wanted it all. I wanted the tools, the fest tools, the cabinet making equipment. And so I just kind of hacked away at it slowly and sort of marketed myself as a furniture maker, this artistic side of woodworking and custom pieces and things like that. And now when I first started, I was out of my shop probably 70% and in my shop 30%. And now I'm in my shop probably 90% or more. And I'm out just to deliver or install and run stuff to, Boston area, whatever. And that's kind of what my dream was, is to sort of start flip-flopping that. But in those earlier years, we worked hard. Adam and I worked long, hard hours. We didn't make a lot of money. In fact, we lost. Sometimes we lose money, both of us, but we always kind of had this idea of building our companies and the passion to make something. And so, yeah, that kind of brings me to where I am now a little bit. And there's probably more history in that than I'm thinking of, but it's been good. It's been really good. And the passion that I have is still the shop, the little wood shop at my dad's house is still standing there. He still owns the same house. And every once in a while I go back there and I tell him, like, that table saw is mine, right? That's mine. And he goes, what the heck do you want that for? You have 2 of them that are twice as good. I go, no, that thing's mine. I paid for that. I paid $400 for that thing when I was 18 years old. And okay, yeah, whatever. And I can still remember the exact make and model of that skill saw that I had when I was 12. Every once in a while I go on eBay and I try to see if anybody has one. I haven't been able to find one yet, but.
What is it?
It's a Craftsman. It was their first 14-volt battery operated Craftsman, 6.5 inch. And yeah, and that's why he let me get it, because he figured, he convinced my mother, if I buy him this, it's not powerful enough to like get his whole hand off, and it'll just knock a finger or something.
That's so much worse. So much more painful.
And that's a nasty first tool. Just to be honest, like the kickback on that, it's like between that and a table saw are the 2 things that are like scared me when I was younger.
I got a Black & Decker jigsaw as my first tool, and I cut everything with it. I built a whole shed with it.
Yeah,
I cut all the rafters. I cut all the rafters with it, like crazy.
Just smoking.
God, I don't even know if I changed the blade on the thing. And eventually, my father gave me his Makita skill saw, and I was building another shed, and it was, my mom was like freaking out, like, I think I was probably similar age. I was probably 12, and she's like, he's gonna cut his hand off. And I remember my dad coming out back, and he like helped me rip a sheet of plywood in half. He's like, all right, you got it. And that was it. It was like, after that, I knew, but you know what, at that age, I feel like you're so careful with that stuff that it's like, you take your time. It wasn't until much later when I'm like trying to rip through a sheet at 100 miles an hour that thing kicks back on me, because I'm being that, an asshole about it. Where, at the time it was like, this thing was, could take my life. Like, I have to be so careful with it. And it's funny, I asked what it was, because forever, and I say that I know where it is, but I know I still have it, and I can't remember if it's at my house or somewhere in my shop here, which is so weird for me to think that I don't know where it is, but I've held on to it forever. And so I was going to ask, what did you end up doing with it?
With that thing?
With that, yeah, with the skill saw.
No, I have no idea. No, that's the artist side of me, is like, who knows?
Yeah, it just showed up one day. It just
disappeared one day. I probably left it in the woods, or it probably died, to be honest. The batteries on those early things. Yeah. There were no lithium ions. The thing probably died.
Yeah, and at the time you were just like, whatever, I'll just get a new one. It didn't have the sentimental value.
Yeah,
those tools used to be so expensive, and they had such a short life of battery. That's why I think I was so against this. Like, everything's going battery. I'm like, oh yeah, good luck with that.
Remember the Makita drill, and had like a pistol battery? It was like 12 inches long. You'd slide up from the bottom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
And the handle was like a mile long.
Yeah, it was a beast.
I had the Porta-Cable. I remember I got the Porta-Cable kit. It was like a drill and a circ saw, but it was a lefty circ saw when it had that little.
Oh yeah.
And it had the little which it should be, so I can see the blade. Let's just be honest, if I'm righty.
Right.
And it had the little nozzle that you could pivot, so you could direct your spray of sawdust. And I was like, this is heaven. This is like the best thing ever. And it had the weirdest battery. And I remember I held on to the thing forever. And then I left my house in Malden. I had my shop there, and I had it on one of the shelves. And I was like, what am I doing? And it's when you purge.
Yeah.
And I had a 30-yard dumpster, and I was like, everything's going. And that was one of the things I tossed. But now I look back, I'm like, I could have held on to that guy.
Yeah.
Because I cut and built so many things with that, whether it was because you'd bring your own tools to work.
Yep.
Once you started carpentry, it was like, that was my baby. I remember I would charge stuff ahead of time. We talk about how we used to have respect for things. And then you get older and you're like, like I won't charge my drone, and I'll take it out. I'm like, I can get like 3 seconds in the air with this thing and I'll do it. But like when I was younger, I'd be like, come home every day, set all my stuff in charges.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a different world.
It's funny. As a kid, I think, it had to be a similar age, like right when it was like when I was still getting presents for Christmas, but I was getting to a point where like toys didn't matter to me. And I remember exactly, it was this like probably 24-inch by 24-inch by 12-inch tall white cardboard box. And I opened it up, and it was just filled with tools that my parents got me. And one of them was a yellow 25-foot extension cord that I still have to this day.
You do?
Yes.
And it's like frayed, and I remember there being a white hard hat, which I definitely don't have anymore. But it was like, after that, it was like that's all I wanted was tools. It was everything. And it wasn't until much later I got to like the festival stuff, but it was, I remember, specifically, I wanted to buy the DeWalt left-handed skill saw with the rafter hook.
The hook. I got it. I have it.
I was obsessed with it, but I couldn't bring myself to buy it or ask for it because I had my dad's Makita. And then he went out and bought a worm drive that I'm fairly certain I still have, and I know the oil has never been changed in it. And I was just obsessed with it. It was like the weirdest.
That was DeWalt's first worm drive.
Yeah,
it was the one with the hook, because I had the same one, and I still have it.
And it was probably like on the people. I think people were probably talking about it on like the forums.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, this saw is awesome. Like, I gotta have that.
See, I never went in the forum. I would always get I get those catalogs that had like everything in them. Like, obviously, the Craftsman had their own catalog, which you'd go through. But I forget what other catalog there was, but it'd have like, I get so many catalogs. I'm so glad they went away.
Actually, was it Grizzly? Maybe
it may have been Grizzly. I don't know. Yeah. You'd go to like Woodcraft. There was, back then there was actually, they're coming back now, but there was like stores that were just tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like you'd drive by it when I was younger and be like, all right, what do I have to make? And I'd go in there and just walk the aisles just to see what was happening. I forget there was Black Bear that was in Canton actually.
Yep.
And you'd go there and
he still sells us. He's
not there anymore. He moved.
No, but Mike, he works at Burns now.
Oh, does he? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's at my shop like once a week. I'm like, seriously? He's like, I'm just dropping blades off today. I'm like, okay. Like every time you get here, there's like a new tool sitting on the dock. I don't know who's ordering this stuff.
But there were a couple of those shops that were, you just drive by and they'd be nothing but tools. There was one in New Hampshire.
Did you ever go to Wholesale Tool in Stoughton? It was directly across the street from my father's shop, Canton Fence. And it was like a knockoff brand of Harbor Freight.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to Gross and Bargain Outlet. That was like my jam. Yeah. My mom would drive me there. So my mom would walk through Walpole, and Walpole Woodworkers was there. Yep. And they'd have this bin of all their cutoffs. And that was, I should clock it. It was probably 2-3 miles from my house. And I would like run ahead to get to the bin, see what they had, have no idea what I'm looking at. But I would then take as much as I could carry it home the 3 miles. Like it went by in like a minute, but I would always every day go for a walk with my mom and then take whatever. I can't tell you the disappointment when like they wouldn't have anything in the bin. It was like for burning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be like,
they'd be in onion bags.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There was, those two, that was the smaller ones, but I would just take everything I possibly could. And then I'd just be making stuff. And I don't like going back to what Polly, I don't know what I was making. It was probably in the sandbox. I don't, no idea, but I just carried it all because I had to.
Probably go like,
yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, storing this stuff in your bedroom when you're a kid, logging the moisture content. I feel like you skipped a really important part of your life. Like, how did you? I don't think I knew about moisture content in wood.
What's your therapist say about this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think
keep logging. Whatever you do, just keep writing the numbers. Don't stop. It's working. Stop. It's working. I had like this love for wood, and
where'd you learn about it? I mean, you can
wood or moisture content.
Let's talk about moisture content, because you can love wood, but to know that, hey, I'm going to store this and monitor the moisture content. It's like, did you read in a magazine saying, oh, it has to be within this percentage for you to be able to use? And it's like, all right, yep, that's noted. I'm going to start measuring everything.
I know that now because, well, the internet, I wasn't even on the internet back then. So I know
you're barely on it now.
Yeah. I don't even know what it is now. Are you guys on the internet? Wow, you guys are amazing. But I worked for, the first job I had was for 2 old timers, and one of them was a framer and like a woodworker. I think when I was that age, he was maybe 70 or something like that. He was basically retired, but if he was the type of guy, if he stopped working, he wouldn't make it. And so he would pick me up at 5 a.m. He lived a few miles from my house, and we wouldn't have to be on the job till like 7 or 7:30, I think. And he roll up the driveway at like 4:50 every morning. And then we would just drive around until 7 or 7:30, whenever like the other guy would show up and we'd actually start working. And we just talk about wood. We talk about all kinds of stuff like building. And so it kind of got passed down from there. And then another guy I knew, who was a friend of my father's, he worked at a lumber mill in New Hampshire. And that's where I got most of like my good wood from. And I still remember I had like Cocobolo in there, and Purple Heart and mahogany. And I used to think like mahogany was so amazing. And now I'm like, what was I thinking? No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. I mostly just learned from him, and I would just kind of like obsess over it. And it didn't, to me, it was always about like what could I make out of that piece of wood? And I would dream about it and think about it. And most of it, some of it, I would never actually make anything out of, because then that was it. Like
You'd use it.
that was the end of the story, is it was gone. So it was more about this possibilities or something like that. And I remember being a kid, we'd go to this old lumber yard called Hirsch Lumber, where I learned a lot from him too. And my father, he was a state trooper. He was in the state police. He wasn't like a builder or anything, but he was always kind of like a DIYer. And he would bring me there. And the old man, Mr. Hirsch, he would give me wood. And my father would be going there to buy some wood for a fence or a shed or whatever. And but my father would let me drive the truck around his yard. And I'd be like, Dad, can you ask Mr. Hirsch for some wood? And he'd be like, hey, can my kid have some wood for it? You know, is there any free wood my kid can pick up? I go, oh yeah, you know, go down back there. And I drive the truck over there. And by the time my dad, you know, got to me and walked there and found me, the truck was full. Like the thing that he was like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, I gotta buy my wood. And you go, you got to put that back. No, I can't put this back. I can't put this stuff back. Like, this was like life to me, you know, and I needed it. And I remember, like you with tools, Nick, I remember asking for plywood from one of my birthdays. And I'd be like, you know, my mother would be like, oh, what do you want for your birthday? I want plywood. And so my father would buy me plywood. And then my mother, she would feel bad that all I got was plywood for my birthday and go out and buy me something else. So, you know, my father was always like, you didn't want wood. You just wanted two, you know, you knew you could get two things. Like, you knew you were going to get the wood and something else. But my father was great in like that. Yeah. Like giving me the stuff, like giving me the, you know, kind of feeding the passion. And my first job, when that older man, his name was Bill Mullet. He's passed away a long time now, but
God
when
bless Mr. Mullet.
Oh yeah, he was, yeah, God bless
Best
him.
name ever.
Yeah, he was one of the nicest people to ever live on the earth. And she would drive me, you can Google it. She would drive me from Lunenburg to Athol, and for 7 o'clock in the morning when I was 15 years old. She would drive me there. It was like 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, drop me off at this other guy's house who I used to work for. And then he would meet her halfway to pick me up. And she would do that like all summer. Like anytime that I could work for him, she'd do it. So they really kind of, you know, they knew like, oh, we're investing in, you know, in our son. Like, and that was a big deal for me until today. It's like I have great memories of all that stuff.
I mean, you're extremely lucky. Like, I think about when I hear this, we think about ourselves too, but I think about my boy who's turning 14, and I'm like, you know, if he hooked on to something that he loved like that at that age, he would have drive anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, hockey's one of those things, but I help coach it. It doesn't matter how many teams he's on, how many practices, whatever it is. It's like we're thinking about it all the time. But if it was like coding, if it was anything, and that destination, you could name it, the distance, I'm like, I'm in. So like saying that, I mean, you're extremely lucky, but on both ends, finding what you love, but then also having a parent that's going to back you up and give you that opportunity is huge.
Yeah. And many times my father would come, he'd buy some tool or he'd give it to me for my birthday or Christmas, and it cost $400 or $300. It was, you know, way too much money for what I had 4 other siblings. So there are 5 of us, and he had like, it wasn't like we grew up broke, but you know, that was a big birthday present. And he would always say, no, it's for both of us. It's for me too. You know, like I'm going to use it too, but he would never use it. I'm like, Dad, what are you going to do with this dovetail jig? You don't even know what it is, you know? And yeah, he was great like that and really fueled sort of, yeah, that passion. But you're right. I have 3 kids, and I'd do anything to kind of help them with something they love. I didn't really play a lot of sports, a little bit, not much. There wasn't much else. I didn't, that was my hobby. It was kind of like, that's what I wanted to do in life, was make something, was create in my mind, like these forms of art. I always saw it as art, and I always saw it as like chasing after something perfect, even though it was never going to be that. Wood is like that. Wood and the use of wood. I have this like thing that I go over in my mind a lot, that wood has the ability to be perfect. And it doesn't really make sense, because wood is so imperfect that every piece of wood has knots or cupped or bowed or something like that. But in the right form, in the right function, it becomes perfect. And you guys experience this more than you know. Like if you're building, when you guys were framing, or I used to be on a frame crew, so I experienced this. I'd be framing something, and I'd be the install guy, and then there'd be a cut guy, and I'd say, "Oh, give me that 2x4 at 19 and 5/8 or something." And then the cut guy would take the 2x4, which was one of the most imperfect pieces of wood you can come up with. It's just a piece of pine that has knots or cups or whatever, and he'd cut it, and he'd measure it out and cut it exactly at that measurement, and then he'd hand it up to me, and I'd bang it in. And we say it all the time, like the cut guy wants to know, hey, how is it? Like, how did I do? How do we do? And the install guy uses the word perfect. He goes, oh, it's perfect. And like, how can something that was so imperfect, so has so many bad characteristics or imperfections become perfect? And it's because like you turned it into that, like you made it, and in its right environment. Even a 2x4, even a stud, a cripple below a window or whatever, is perfect when they're all put together. And reclaimed, for me, the reason I got into reclaimed were a few different reasons, but it was the most imperfect wood on the outside, especially barn wood, weathered stuff. But then I would get it, clean it, kind of discover it, think about where it could go, what use it could have, and then find that, put it there, and even the client go, that's perfect. And that was kind of always the chase. It's the chase for perfection in one of the most imperfect environments, in one of the most imperfect forms. And that was sort of like this mental passion that I always had. And even the wood that I had when I was a kid, I would just go over and over in my head what I could use it for. I'd be like, oh, I could make this out of it, I could make that out of it. But would that give me this satisfaction of perfection? Like would it become perfect for that exact thing? And even now till today, it's like I can't settle. Like it's like, oh no, that's an inch too narrow, or like this sort of subjective portion to what we're doing in whether a piece is right or wrong. And for me, it's like, no, it's either perfect or it's not. And so that was kind of like this mental passion that I always had. And I loved wood. I still love wood. And reclaimed, I love a lot, because reclaimed is the quality of the material is so much more than what we have now. And most of this stuff was like, well, it was all old growth, meaning it was naturally grown for hundreds of years and then cut down, some of it by hand, and milled even by hand, like the hand hewn stuff. and then air dried, meaning they would use it green, and then it's dried for 200 years or something like that. And the quality of the material is just, to me, it's like, it's the sweetest stuff. It's the best stuff that we ever had. And they were cutting down the best stuff, years ago. And they would, okay, we got to build a house. We got to build this barn or a building. And they go out and get the better trees. And so now we rediscover this reclaimed. You uncover it from, some old building or a barn or I've scraped chicken manure off of chestnut, just because, like, I'm like, it's chestnut. Like, I'm just keep scraping this chicken. I could see the value in it. I knew what was under there, and I knew that it was going to be perfect in the end. So it's kind of like this constant drive to make the wood the superstar, to make the wood what people really fall in love with. And even in my own sort of skills or artistic ability or something like that, for me, the artistic side of it is just not screwing it up. It's like just exhibiting what's already, should be admired. And some material is so good, it doesn't even matter what you make it of. I think of that like reclaimed white oak, reclaimed chestnut. It's like, it doesn't matter what you make. It doesn't even matter. As long as you just don't screw it up, people are going to love it. It's going to live on. Like, it's going to exist in the environment, and people are going to admire it. And that's kind of like this joy that I have, or this passion that I still have.
Isn't it crazy that chase of perfection is such a long road? Meaning, like, you do a house, and when you're building it, you've put everything into it that you have. Meaning that, like, all your skill, all your trades, the material selections, lengths of what you get, like if it's flooring, and it's something that it's harder and harder to get to perfection. Like, I remember a bunch of years ago, I had like the boot rule. I would use my boot as like how many seams you'd have in the floor. And now it's like, you walk around, I'm like, I don't know if you can even do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, everything's so much shorter. And I wonder, when you're saying that, there's two things come to mind. One, my initial thought was, like, every time you build a house, I'm like, that house is perfect. And then, like, a month goes by and you look at it with like clean eyes, where like, you're not, like, there's something about that when you're invested something that you'll almost lie to yourself and go, no, that's right.
Right.
That's 100% right. And then when you come back 2 months later, when you're not as invested because it's done and you're invested in something else, you look at it with raw eyes and go, I would, the Domer scale, you're almost more of a, raw and critique it. And you're like, all right, I'll do this differently. And then that drives you to the next one. It's like, all right, I'm not screwing that one up this time. Like, I know this is what I got wrong here.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you were 100% behind that.
I still say, like, I would love to get every piece of furniture I ever made back. Like, give them all back. Let me redo it.
Yeah.
And it's because, like, you're right. You try and you do everything but I don't know, that maybe that's what makes us good at what we do. It's like, it's never quite there. It like, even stuff I walk in and I see, I'm like, oh, I'd love to remake that thing.
And
Okay.
it can be frustrating too, because it's like, I've told the story before about this pergola I built, and I literally, it came to mind when we were talking about chasing this perfection and chasing, like, always doing your very best. And I told this story at one time in front of this group of people. And in that moment, I committed to the fact that it had bothered me for so many years that I need to do the right thing. And I need to go back to that client's house, knock on their door, and offer to rebuild it.
Yeah.
And I drove to that house. And I swear to God, I drove to that house and I couldn't find the house. I was like, I swear it was on the street. And I remember Googling, like, I remember the client's name. So I Googled their name, found the address online, went to that house, realized that they had painted it a crazy color. And I loop around and the pergola is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it didn't survive. Of course it didn't survive. It was, at the moment I thought I was building it correctly, but I knew.
Forever. But you were building it forever.
Right.
So you assumed it was still standing.
I assumed it was still there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And I was like, I guess I got off. Like, I'm not, there's nothing to do here. Like I just have to leave. But it's the, the other thing I want to relate to that is, as you're talking, I'm like thinking about when we work on personal projects where, it's, yeah, I could just do that, but it's going to like, I'd rather wait until I could do this, and this.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
It's, like you want to use that, you want to use that piece of Purple Heart, but it's like, I don't want to just use it for this. I'd rather use it for this and use it in this manner and have this like snowball effect where it's like, that's why we don't get anything done. Like, John, I know everyone rags on you about The Office, but it's like, there's probably some sense of you that thinks about like, well, I could finish this, but I'd rather put my focus on the range that's in the middle of the kitchen, or like, what, I'm going to sell this house anyway, so I'm just going to put a quick coat of paint on it and I'll be out of here. It's like, we challenge ourselves constantly where it's like, for a client, yes, I agree that we are invested in the moment. And when we come back to it, we always look at something and say, we could have done that better.
But I try and think of that as like some of the guys that I surrounded myself with as mentors, whether they were foremen or carpenters above me, they weren't like preaching that. Like I try and pinpoint where we had this conversation, like who taught me that? Like my father, I don't know him. Like I didn't come from this industry. Like my first taste of like tools was like my neighbor owned a landscaping company, and I would just go over there and clean out the trucks. I'd be like, all right, I want to learn how to dump it so I can dump all the grass cuttings and I'll clean out the truck. And then I would hang out with the guy that was the guy's name was Nick. He had a Dewey, and I didn't know what a Dewey was back then. So we used to ride his bike to the shop. But I love the guy. Like I looked up to him, like he cut lawns, and then he would then wrench on all the equipment downstairs in the shop. And I would be there and I'd try and think out for him. Like I'd watch it, like I was watching the show. And then I'd know that, oh, he's changing the blades. He's going to need this wrench. And I didn't know what I was looking at, but I'd try and find that wrench. So when he asked for it, it was there. And I'm just like, I've always had that mentality of just trying to be that next step. And that's what honestly frustrates me today with anyone that we bring on in the company, is that everyone's there for just the moment. Yeah. No one's thinking and I'm not trying to be rude to anyone that listens to this that's in my circle of people, but there's something that's missing where it's like, all right, how do you think ahead? And it's tough that I was doing it early on, and the want to always be better. There was no one saying that to me. Like I joke about my second boss was like, he'd always order one stick short of trim, baseboard, casing, everything to make you want to value the cuts you're making. But no one was
had this. Did we have the same boss? You had the same.
Mine was Tommy Klein out of nowhere. And he would point, he'd flat out say it, because I'd always be like, yo, what am I screwing up? And he'd be like, no, I always cut a piece short. I always order a piece short, so you guys have to squeeze it all in and make it work through your cuts. And that's how he taught us. But no one was ever like, make it better than you left it. No one was like, make it better the next piece you cut, that scarf joint should be tighter. I try and pinpoint that, and I don't know, because I would love to reproduce it. I'd love to be able to say those words to my kids, whether it's, coding, basketball, whatever they take on, so that way I could instill that going forward, but I can't find it.
I don't know if it's always been in my mind, or if I feel like it's evolved.
I think it is an evolution. Yeah.
I hate to attribute it to social media, because I don't think that's truly what it is, because if that was the case, then everyone, would have that. But I think the choice to promote one's work, like when we're promoting something, it's like we want to do it better. And we want to be better at it, because it's like, hey, I'm going to put myself out there. I need to make sure I'm doing a quality job. Otherwise you get picked apart. And it's not because I'm afraid of someone picking something apart, but it's like, you're basically challenging yourself. It's like, put it out there, and like you want it to be better. I don't know.
But it's even like today I was loading balusters, newel posts into the back of my truck. There's no one around. And I pulled up to the dock. I knew they were going to be there. I pull up, I move it over to my truck, and I have this internal battle with myself on what's the most efficient way for me to do this process and this movement of going from the rack to my truck. So all the labels face the same way and that they all slide. Like it's just, I thought about it like what you're saying, Nick, is when you promote it, but mentally I'm fucked. Like the fact that no one's there and I'm like, all right, so this is the simplest. I started loading it one way and I was like, that's not efficient. I pivot another way. There's only 10 of these things. Okay. And I'm like trying to figure out how they're all going to fit in my truck at the same time and that they're all going to, all the labels. So that way, when the bungee goes on, it's all the same thing. And I agree with you. When you're promoting on social, yeah, put your best foot forward.
Yeah. I don't think
personally,
I know, out. But I think that's what has I'm not saying that you're going to promote the way you stack your balusters on social media, but what I'm saying is that I feel like it's training you, to be better in everything. I told Jeff Sweener this. He's got that motto: "How you do one thing is how you do everything."
Yeah,
and it literally, literally is burnt into my brain, and I don't know why. It's like I read it one time. He posted it. And I'll do something, like I'll be at the gym, right? And I'm exhausted, and I'm not gonna do the third set. I'll walk away, and I'll literally think of Jeff Sweener, and I'll be like, son of a bitch, and I'll go back and I'll do the third set, and it's like this stuff gets drilled into your head, and it's like similar with the balusters, where it's like if you did it, it would bother the hell out of you. If you didn't stack them all the same way, it would bother you.
But it's like even when I was younger, I would freak out that like Tyvek and stuff wasn't, all lined up. So when I pulled away at the end of the job, no one was judging me on that.
You turn around, you're like, that doesn't look good. I got to go fix it.
I didn't level it. Like
right.
It's like this. And I remember pulling stuff off staples because I knew it wouldn't be. And I honestly, to be completely honest, I wish I can contribute it to somebody so I don't have to blame my brain. Like I'd be like,
yeah,
oh, that was
just. Yeah, it's just OCD, John.
No, but it's painful, and so like I can't tell my kids to get OCD. Like I don't know. It's a good curse to have.
Imagine if they had like a pill for that. It's like, this is gonna make you OCD.
I forget I watched a stupid movie that day with Matthew McConaughey. It was Bradley Cooper. That's the look, and it was Limitless.
Oh yeah,
where there's that pill.
Yeah,
that gets you so dialed in. I've watched it's like on at night and I'll just kick it on. I love that movie. I'm like, there's a hint of that could be true, right? That if I use part of my brain and it's a little cleaner and clearer, like some days I feel like I'm on. Like right. I can take on 100%. My entire notebook.
Yeah.
And I want to reproduce that day. I'm like, what kind of sleep? I'm a freak where it's like, I've told my kids this. I'm like, hey, how'd you sleep? And they're like, it slept great, blah, blah. And I'll be like, hey, when you get up tomorrow morning and you slept really well, take a gauge of where the pillows were and then set them all up. So the same way tomorrow. So like you go to bed, like I do this. I'm like, I want to go to bed. So every single pillow is like, if I could label them all with Sharpie and on my bed, so that way I had the same spot. Like I want to continue the way I woke up.
I think you're starting to lose me here.
No, like, so if you were to, wake up,
I understand you. Yeah, I think I've derailed. I don't think I'm on that train anymore. But it's I agree. Like I feel like some days I'm just on it. I'm always seeking, like, people. What's that? Focus. The medicine for focus.
Ritalin?
No, not Ritalin. The other one. People do it casually in college. How do I not know the?
Rogan talks about it all the time.
I forget. Well, speaking of Rogan, it's like the On It stuff, the alpha brain. And John, I know you. Yeah, I'm sitting looking at it. It's sitting on my desk, and it's like I take it, but I want to take it, and then feel like this like thing click.
Yeah.
And just be like, damn, I can. And the only thing that I've ever taken that this podcast is completely derailed. But the only thing I've ever taken that
we're gonna get back on
go back to work is 5 hour energy. And it's like when I take a 5-hour energy, I used to take them when I worked before I started my company in the office. I would take it, and it was I could literally feel the blood rush to my head, my eyes open up, and I would just sit there and work.
It's called a stroke.
Yeah. I mean, my heart hurt a little bit.
No, but like I look at those days where I know you just feel like you can just take on anything and kill it all, and you have a super productive day. At the same time, I'm trying to understand all those little movements that I did.
Right.
Like, what time did I wake up? What did I do? What, just how it flowed. So that way I can try and reproduce it every day.
I feel like it's very much, the aura around you, the people around you, where it's like, if no one screws up your day or screws up your mood, you're on. Or if someone screws up your mood far enough where it's like, now I'm just going to make decisions as fast as I can, and everyone better move the hell out of my way.
That's the tough part. Like you talked about the alpha brain. It's like, I could take that and then take a shitty phone call and go, oh, just
Gone.
wasted that.
Right.
Because it's weird.
It's like, as we all do, it's like, I got a crappy email yesterday, and I'm like, I might as well go home, because all I'm going to do is sit here and think about how I'm going to have to deal with this 7 days from now when I have to go meet with them. And it's like, even sitting in this conversation, you said something earlier that reminded me of that email. And I'm like, I felt myself, I'm like, stop, focus on Paul. Like, this is because otherwise I'm just going to sit here and go completely sidetracked. Let's go back to wood. Let's talk about wood.
Let's talk about wood. Wood and reclaimed wood really gives me three, like, I think about it in three categories. One, I've already told you, is like quality, being like the best that's ever going to be. You're not going to reproduce that. So stop throwing it away, by the way. Stop demoing stuff and throwing it in a dumpster, because you're never going to see this stuff again. But the second one with reclaimed specifically is story, and the history that it has and the identity that it has. Every piece of wood has identity already. It already has a fingerprint, a thumbprint. But then reclaimed gets used in some capacity, in some way, and it gives us like this great history. It tells a story. And even when you see a beam or siding boards or any type of wood that came out of factories or something, to know its story is one of the greatest elements to me, because it gives like this additional connection. So you already have this beauty and this quality of wood, and now you get to have a story, and that story gets to live on in another form a lot of times. And some stories, like one I was thinking about the other day, is, you guys know what Kingswood is? Have you heard of this? So Kingswood is like early America before the Revolutionary War. King George, he claimed, he sent surveyors to claim all different types of wood all in and around New England. And these guys would go around and they would actually hatchet markings in trees. And that belonged to King George. And to touch the tree, to cut it down, even if it was on your property, was actually an act of treason. And the reason why they were doing this actually made sense. He wasn't like this big bad tyrant, completely. He liked the wood. So I kind of relate to him. But the reason why he did most of this was because New England had a lot of white pines, which can grow to like 250 feet tall. And that's what they were using ship masts for, that they were building all these ship masts out of the white pines. And then also some of the oaks with the futtocks, which is kind of like the curved part of the boats. They would actually look for branches that were shaped like a ship, like the actual futtock of the ship, and they would mark these trees. And anyway, so make a long story short, the people who own the trees, who were, anti-George, they would go and cut them down. And it was kind of an act of rebellion and sort of like, we don't care, like, were American and stuff like that. And they would cut them down, but they would mill them, and they'd leave them like on purpose, very wide, like wide boards. And they wouldn't actually put them all the time in their houses, like in the first floor, or even the second floor, but they would put them in the attics. And that was like to kind of covertly use it. So they had the satisfaction of, hey, we got back at George, we cut his tree down, but also if anybody who was pro England came in their house, they weren't going to get necessarily sold out. And so a lot of houses in New England, not a lot, but some 1700s, kind of 1760s, that era, there were a lot of them were being used out of Kingswood. And so the first house I bought was in Leominster, Massachusetts, and it was built in 1780-ish, I think. It wasn't actually records, and it was so old. The thing was about 6.5 feet off the road. I'm sure you've seen these things before. Like if you sat in the front lawn, you'd trip the mailman as he walked by. Like the thing was barely off the road. It was all hand hewn post and beam. And when I bought it, I went up to the attic, and sure enough, there's Kingswood in my attic. And so I'm like literally babysitting this wood. I didn't touch it. And in fact, my house was so close. It was so close to the road that one day my son got out, and he walked into the road, like legit. He had just learned how to open his gate. I didn't know he knew how to open it. And I was in charge of him. And so he walks out into the road, and I discovered this because a cop brought him back to me. It was pretty rough. And the cop wasn't happy with me, but I could tell you who was less happy with me was my wife. And so I said to her, like, she said, don't you know, like, you're supposed to be watching? I said, how am I supposed to watch our son and my Kingswood at the same time? Like, I can't be responsible for both of the things. And she goes, okay, you have to understand, like, one of these things is like a living child of yours, and the other is an obsession. And I was like, yeah, I know, but which one is which, like my wood was like this obsession that I had, and I wouldn't touch it. Like I wouldn't take it out of the house, because I had sort of like, I wanted it, but I respected where it was. And so anyway, a long story short, I went and sold the house, and my sister-in-law is the one who bought the house from me. And about 4 or 5 months later, she said to me, hey, Mass Save is coming in to blow the attic. They're going to insulate the whole attic. And I need to get rid of all the wood up there. And my heart like sank. And she said, you want all the wood? Like, they said it's got to go so they can blow the attic. And so I ended up getting the wood. Like, I thought that was kind of like a sign that I could now have the wood. And so I'd went and built a bunch of barn doors out of this Kingswood, and people would go to me like, oh, does this wood have any history? And I would go, history? It started a war. It almost cost my divorce. It almost killed my son, and I almost murdered my sister-in-law over this, this wood.
Where do you want me to start?
Like, yeah, where do you want to begin? And so I have like this passion for the stories of each piece of wood. And when you can identify the story and who had it, where it was, like the history of maybe something that evolved around it, the house that it was in. I just took down, or I hired a guy to take down a house that was built in 1790. It was all chestnut and white oak. And it's like all the framing, all the studs, all the rafters, all chestnut, 100% chestnut. And most of the flooring is all white oak. And it's like amazing to me that somebody was cutting down chestnut to build studs for their house. Now chestnut's extinct because it's diseased and it's illegal to even cut it down. and it's one of the most rare like local woods that you can get. And so you discover like, man, the quality or the story of the material brought back to life is like, you know, amazing stories and fun to be a part of. And then the third thing I kind of think, which is probably the more eccentric one, is with wood, is I think about time. And like, I get a little weird with the way I think about it, but I'll bring it back to you right away. Like, Johnny can testify to this, and you too, Nick, and a lot of other builders. Like, you build a house and somebody walks through the house and they say, oh, when was this, you know, when was this house renoed? And you say, no, we just built it, like it's new. And they say, no, not like, you know, I want to know when it was renovated. Like this can't be original. Like, and you say, no, this house, we just built it. Like it's a new house. And now they have admiration for craftsmanship, maybe, and quality and design, certainly. But what they're talking about and what's making them almost in this state of unbelief is time. And it's because you've introduced time into something that is new, and you're doing it with great design, with great care, with the way it's situated on the lot or in the neighborhood or something like that. Like, the thing fits perfectly. And you're also doing it with these elements of reclaimed and elements that you wouldn't see now. And they're like, no, I know that wood doesn't exist anymore. Like, this house can't be new. I know that brick doesn't exist anymore. I know that stone, you know, looks like it's 200 years old. Like, this has to be original. And what we're doing or what I think I'm doing as an artist, is almost like transferring time. It's like giving time back to a piece. And somebody was in my shop, not probably 3 weeks ago. I built some doors, and it was an older guy, and he was admiring the doors, and he's like, wow, these are amazing doors. And he was talking, and just by the way he was talking, I'm like, I got to tell him, like, I built the doors. And I said to him, like, I made these doors. And he said, no way, you made the. And I said, yeah. And his disbelief isn't about like the craftsmanship or the quality. Like, he's in my shop, he sees like I can make some stuff, you know, like he knows that I'm capable of making something. But what his kind of almost like his admiration or his disbelief is because of time. And you take something that's brand new, that you just finished last week, a month ago. You just hand the keys to the new homeowner, or you just place this piece of furniture in their foyer or their living room or something like that. And it's almost like it's existed there forever. It's almost like it's been there in a state from 200 years ago. And that for me is like the pinnacle of compliments. Like, when this guy said, there's no way you made that, it was almost like he was complimenting me in a way that he didn't even understand, because he's not complimenting like my craftsmanship or the quality. It to me, it's like a compliment of being able to transfer time and give an element that for me is the art. It's the artistic element is being able to place time. And we do that as builders if we do it well. Like, you drive by a neighborhood, a cul-de-sac, a building, and you know, it tells on you right away. Oh yeah, that was built. You can tell. I could tell. I could probably tell you what decade that thing was built. Oh yeah, that was built in the 90s. That was built in the 2000s. That's 8 years old, just by the style and sort of the situations or something like that. But what's great, and what I think is almost like my passion, is to disguise what we're making in the element of time and be like, this thing's existed like for 200 years, for 400 years. And Reclaim for me is doing this, and it's bringing back time. And as an artist, this is almost like a pinnacle, because imagine the piece of material you're working with. It already has quality, it has a story, and you're already introducing time. Like it has time, the element of time. The piece, the wood, is really the superstar. It's the wood is really the art. The wood is really the element. And all you're doing, all that I think we can do, is just to not screw it up. Like you just don't have to, if you just don't mess it up, then you've done it right.
Well, I think part of what you're saying is that there's a pressure of not just completing something, but like we talk about efficiencies and green and all that stuff. You don't want to waste it, because no one's gonna be patient today to wait for something to grow 200 years. Yeah. And then on top of that, you're not going to be allowed to cut it down. So the materials you're working with are timeless, and that you're never going to get them back. So as a craftsman, it's your duty to do something honorable with that material. I mean, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, that's it. You're the curator. You're borrowing it. Yeah. You're transporting it, and the artistry or the element of craft is what you're going to do with it. And that's why I kept that stack of wood in my bedroom. In fact, you mentioned the Purple Heart again. That Purple Heart, I remember what I made. I made a jewelry box for my wife when I proposed to her. That was when I was 28 years old, 27 years old, I think. From 12 years old to 27 years old, it just stayed there. And, it moved with, I moved it. I wasn't in the bedroom for that long, but it's almost like you wait until it tells you what it wants to be. And then the perfection part of it is when you get it right, when you just don't screw it up. And I could have cut that thing up 100 times, making a birdhouse or whatever that else was, a cribbage board in my head. But now that wood sits on my wife's bedroom set in there, and I wish I could remake it. That's like, yeah, God, I wish I could remake that thing.
It's gonna disappear one day and show up like half the size. Like, did this thing shrink?
Now it's reclaimed Purple Heart. Yeah.
It's, when you look at material, and I feel like you probably get asked this all the time, but how do you know? Like, what makes you look at that material from 17, that house you just tore down, and obviously chestnut and white oak, but I guess in short, is everything worth saving to you?
Yeah, I just wish I could get to it all. That's the reality. Like, it's funny because out of that house, I didn't keep all of it. I couldn't. It was too much. I paid for all of it. I owned all of it. And in the end, some of it went into a dumpster because it was too far gone, or it wasn't the top shelf. And, part of it is like, yeah, I actually do think that. I think I do think that, like, it's all worth saving. But can you save it all? No, that's kind of the reality. Like,
why?
I can't, because I can only build so many things but yeah, everybody, yeah, if you have the ability to save it, yeah, I think you should, because if you understood what you were throwing out for years, like these kind of guys, you know, the 50-year-old, 60-year-old guys, they go, oh man, you should have been back. You should have been back when I was throwing stuff away in my heyday. Don't tell me, you know, oh, the stuff we threw away. And they regret it. Like they do regret it. They go, man, I can't believe the stuff we throw away. And I'd say, yeah, you know, you're never going to see that again. They go, yeah, I know. Like they go to Home Depot and they get the wood and they go, man, I'm never going to see that stuff again. You're never going to see, you know, these pieces of heart pine. And the one piece of wood I pulled out was a piece of chestnut, hand hewn. It's 7.5 by 7.5 by 18 feet long. It has 2 notches in it, very small. And it is straight as an arrow. I thought to myself, I didn't even say it, but I thought to myself, this could be the best piece of wood I've ever seen in my life. Like I might never see that again. And so, yeah, that goes on the truck, that goes on the trailer. And that, you know, I'm checking the moisture content every other week. Like, is this ready yet?
It's
is it ready yet? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that, but at the same time, don't you feel like that piece of wood, it will only be honored when you're able to find the right home for it and your skill level is adequate enough to be able to shape it for its next life?
Yeah, that's it. And that's the element of the art, the craft, the passion. It comes when that's the perfection. It's not perfect yet. Like that 2x4 sitting on the ground, that was 19 and 7/8. It needed to be cut to 19 and 5/8, and then it needed to be banged into the exact right spot in order to find perfection. When it was sitting there, most people like you, I know I've thrown 2x4s away that were that size. Like, oh, that's too short. Throw it in the dumpster. Like, there's a point that it becomes of no value, or it starts out like, yeah.
But if that was a piece of chestnut, a 19 and 7/8 long piece of chestnut, there's value to it.
I think so.
And I guess where I'm going with that, where I'm going with that is that, all right, 20 years from now, should we have thrown that 2x4 away?
That's a good point. But like, yeah, the wood that I think of is fast grown and, you know, fast dried. My opinion is you can reproduce that piece of wood in 20
today
years. Today, yeah. If it changes, yeah, I agree. I think
at
the
some scarcity,
point,
it's the scarcity that creates value here. And it's, exactly, you know, like you can't get chestnut. So in 20 years, 40 years, 50, whatever, 100 years, where it's like, oh, dude, we used to throw spruce pine in the dumpster, you know, even if it was a 96-inch piece and it had a little cup to it.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, will we be pulling apart houses that were built in 2005, 2008?
At some point.
Yeah, we are. And are people going to go, man, this is a 2x12, you know, 16-foot rafter. Like, this is, you know, this is great. Like, will that happen?
Isn't that's funny to think about, right?
It's funny, right? Yeah.
Because the guy 200 years ago wasn't putting that rafter in thinking, oh man, I wonder if in 200 years, Paul's going to show up and take this thing apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't necessarily think like that, but neither did they. I mean, they used chestnut to build a barn.
Right.
You know, that's so foreign. Now we take that and turn it into furniture. And, you know,
I feel like all lumber now is disposable.
But is there any part of you that thinks that 200 years ago they felt the same way?
I agree with you there, but I feel like the quality is so much different.
1,000% agree on that.
Like since we know they were surrounded by amazing stuff and they had the patience to utilize it in certain areas, you know, and it's just today it's so disposable. And like, if you leave a stud out right now, the graining in it and the rings of it don't hold it together like it used to. So it'll warp and twist and be completely chaotic, where how my mind races to figure out what the value would be.
Well, I think the value is what, like when it all goes to engineered, like at some point, everything just going to go through a chipper and become engineered everything. And so will we be pulling apart houses like, wow, this is a real 2x12. This is a real 2x10. This is fir. This is pine. Like, do you think that? I don't know.
I think we've hit the bottom of the bell curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the junk before we fix it.
Could be.
I mean, I'm cool with being wrong.
No, for as much as I love wood, a 2x4, you know, from a box store right now just does not excite me at all. Like,
right.
So,
but I don't think it should. Yeah, I don't think it should. I mean, we're talking about right now, and I think I'm trying to relate the extreme 200 years ago plus 200 years in the future. Yeah, I think I think you're right on track there, is that everything's going to end up going through a chipper and everything becomes engineered.
Yeah.
Because technology will just advance quicker in that. And then, at some point we probably won't even use wood at all.
But I think it should, which is another interesting thing to think about. Like, I'm not so much of a purist that I've used LVLs and do I want a 2x12? No.
Right.
No, I want to build this thing better, stronger, straighter, to last longer.
Yeah, if someone said, hey, you want to build this house out of all LVL or all KD?
Yeah.
I'll do all LVL all day.
Yeah, there's no
nice
conversation.
And straight, nice and strong.
Yeah, but I think that's what's going to put even more value, to your point, in real wood, in grown materials. And I think that for some reason, wood has stood this test of time. Not for some reason, I think because of its beauty, really, and it's the ability to shape it. And even though trends go up and down, and at one point it was like pour concrete on everything. I'm not against concrete, or put melamine on everything or whatever. Wood just has always lasted. It's always come back. It's always circled back to natural organic materials. And I think that there will always be, 200 years from now, people are still going to admire chestnut. I hope the same way or more, to your point, Nick. Like, it's going to become more rare as it gets used up.
I feel like the only way lumber today, conventional lumber, becomes more valuable if it turns into like a Whole Foods lumber distributor. Like, they've aged their wood. They've let the tree grow for 200 years in an undisturbed forest, like meat.
Sure.
It's like organically grown. It's been harvested at the right time. That there needs to be a forest that's doing that, that's harvesting it, replanting it, and waiting 100 years. I think that would be valuable.
Yeah, that's it. That's my next business. Is I'm going to be a wood curator and be like, yes, this does meet all of the criteria.
Well, see, that's what I was getting at, Paul. It's like yes, maybe you can't harvest all of the reclaimed or save all of the reclaimed, but you have the opportunity to share. I mean, just right now, right here on the podcast, like, to be able to shed light on this, right? Like, we have 2 houses that we're going to be ripping down in the next, one in the next 2 weeks and one in the next couple months. Yeah. And one of them has a historic background to the home. And I walked it today, and I'm looking around, and it's like, all right, I'd love to pull some of this stuff out before we just crunch it all up. Yeah. What am I going to do with it? I have no idea. The moldings are amazing. So it's like, I'd love to know what's underneath that paint. Mm-hmm. And, and maybe some of the beams down in the basement, like I have this thought that, as we tear down homes, one of my thoughts is that we reclaim some of this lumber and build a piece of furniture to go back in the house at the very end. And exactly. That's something I've always thought about. I've never been able to actually implement it. And we're seriously talking about it. But I don't, like, I walk around there and I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm not, not privy to know what all this material is, but I'm going in two different directions here. My point is that I think that, the opportunity to educate people and get people on, your side of things, there's going to be the masses aren't going to care. Right.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
probably a handful of guys that, listening right now, like, dude, I'm with Paul. Like, I want to save this stuff. I want to do something with it. I got stuff in my bedroom. I got stuff in my bathtub, like, and wherever it is, it's like, I'm storing the stuff because I want it to have a perfect life. I want it, rather than being disposed of. It's like, it deserves another opportunity. And
Nick, the easiest answer is, talking with John at Noria Salvage. They'll come out and they'll deconstruct it, and they'll take that and they'll pay you for the stuff. Like we just did Mount Vernon. It just has to be in your Rolodex of options to want to curate that. I mean, Paul, we took apart that Marlborough Street project.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, we're going to save all the floor joists and everything for you. And it was a lot harder to do the demo, but it was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
And it just has to, it's weird that you want to be someone that curates stuff like that, but at the same time, you're a craftsman. So it's the scale of which one weighs heavier on your conscience is the one you can use. Like, you can't do everything with it, but yeah, if we had storage, we'd salvage it all. We're doing one on Mount Vernon Street now. We're going to take everything out of it.
But think about it like this. Like, if I can exhort you further to do this stuff, for any listeners, like, we all go through life, like, professionally, and you try to make money, you try to build some version of success, or get to some plateau in life. And then once you get there, once you've arrived, one of your first, like, things you sort of start to look at is, okay, now what can I do to maybe either do what you love or give back to a community or your family, or to do something responsible or something like this. And for some reason, the trend is like to wait until, okay, now that I've built some measure of success, how can I go back and do something meaningful? And the course of business is almost to scratch your way to the top. It's like to do whatever you have to, within our own reason to get there. But what if you could do, my point is like what if you could do both at the same time? Like, what if you could think about what you really want to do in life, what you really enjoy in life, what you would really like to leave as like a legacy or whatever, and not be so quick, and not be so in a rush, and not be so like just motivated by, I won't even call it money. Like, it is money, but sometimes it's time, sometimes it's deadline, sometimes it's, I got to get this thing done in order to get here or there or there. And it's not, you're not even thinking about the money necessarily. Sometimes it is money. And then you arrive, and then it's like, now what can I do? But what if, like you're saying, Nick, in this project, it's going to cost you more. It did cost you more, John. But every piece of that material, I remember it, got used in some capacity or another. A lot of it back on your jobs, in fact. I remember I brought it to a mill. We had it dried. I had it cut. And then we used it in, you probably remember the project, but it was something
Richland
about,
Road.
Yeah, Richland Road.
We did the faux beams. Yeah.
Yeah. And it all went back. And maybe you made money on it. Maybe you didn't. You probably didn't, to be honest with you. I mean, you probably
But I love the story.
But you did it because you had like this purpose of responsibility. Like, if you didn't have to make money, would you have done that? Like, is that something you would want to do in life? Yeah. Like, if I didn't have to make any money in life, what would I actually want to do? You know what I would really want to do, like, every day, is I kind of want to go find wood and make furniture out of it. And so what if I can take that? What if you can take what you would want to do, or the listeners, and not always think about what you're trying to build, but actually think about like, what do I want to do in life? Like, what would I do in life if I didn't just have to do what I'm doing now, like trying to make money? Or everybody has money. Everybody.
You have it, you lose it.
Yeah,
You
it
use
doesn't
it.
really.
It's all the same.
It's all relative. Like if you have 100,000, if I make 200 grand next year or 50 grand, I mean, it almost doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter, because like I think about even like what I'm doing in my life, and it's like, well, what am I trying to do? Like, what would I actually want to do in life? And professionally, I have other goals, like with my family or my house or my community. But like my goal with business is to kind of restore, pieces, like to put elements back in to have people appreciate not just what I did, but what the earth has done, what grew, what the history, the story, what King George was after is now in your foyer. Like the wood.
It's your identity.
Yeah.
Like you can have, it can encompass all of it, your family, you personally, your business, but I think it's your identity is what you're trying to describe. That could be wrong, but that's what I think about when I hear it. It's like, what is my identity when I walk around? Is it that I'm a dad, or is it that I may have built that house in Chesterton, but that story lived on, and that they might tell everyone that walks in that house and the people that buy it next, well, they might say, hey, it's a 5,000 square foot house, but you know what's really cool is these beams came out of Boston, right on Marlborough Street. That's the coolest part of that whole thing, is that you've made a story line continue, and it didn't get crunched and munched.
I got to be part of another great story. It was the Seaport shipwreck, which you probably remember. I think it was 2016. Skanska was building a seaport district, Dorchester
PwC
Flat.
building.
Yeah. And so they dug up about 25 or 30 feet below the surface. They actually dug up a ship that, once they started discovering it, they kind of went all stops and everybody got involved. And Boston Historical was there, and archaeologists and everybody, and they actually extracted this ship out of the ground. And long story short, somebody I know very well and work with professionally named John Dickey, he was kind of like in the right place at the right time, and he got the whole ship delivered to our shop. And his shop was right next to mine. And so this whole ship came to our shop, and they dropped it there on tractor trailers, like, the whole ribbing, like all the futtocks and a lot of the ship was left there. And so through some investigation and work by Boston Historical, they discovered it was a lime ship, probably built in the 1900s. And the way they identified the year of the ship was that the shape of the futtocks, the grain line went with the shape of the futtocks. And they said that after like somewhere in the 1800s, all of that wood would have been used up, and there would have been no more wood left in the domestic area to be able to build this type of ship. So they identify it by actually the wood of the ship. And anyway, it was a lime, it carried lime, the thing burnt, sank, probably in the 1800s. And then they covered, that when they flattened Boston, they covered the thing up. And so now they dig it up, we get it, comes back to the shop, and John Dickey and I and a few others built furniture out of it. And all of that furniture, most of it, is actually back in Skanska's building. They bought it all back from us. They said, yeah, anything you build. I mean, they did like orders and stuff like that. And John Dickey was kind of like the lead guy on it, but I got to make a lot of cool furniture out of it, light fixtures and all that type of stuff. But what a story. Like, this is, you have a similar story, John, except maybe, it wasn't a ship that burnt down.
The story's not even close.
Yeah, it's not even the same. But the value and the mindset, like Skanska's a baller for that now.
Yeah.
Like this thing was, CNN ran this story. Like it wasn't just in local news groups, but it was a big deal. And Skanska got, they got recognition and all of this, great press on it, but they also they did something great. Like they turned it into like, oh, this is gonna hurt our deadline. This is gonna cost us another $1 million or hundreds of thousands. They stored it, and they slowed down and said, okay, now what is our responsibility to kind of, making this thing live on. Now, they probably didn't have a choice. Boston Historical is probably like, you can't touch anything. But the idea that they said, no, we want all the wood. We want the rights to all the wood so that we can buy it back. And they bought a lot of furniture. And I think if you go there till today, their lobby has, shipwood in it and all that type of stuff. It was all white oak, a lot of white oak. And for us, it sucked. It was the worst wood I've ever worked with. It had been buried for all those years. It was waterlogged. The moisture, speaking of moisture content, the thing was at like a 30%. I don't know. I don't even know how that was possible, how white oak. And it was buried in mud, and we had to power wash it. And, but there was like this passion that went into the story. There's a passion that goes into the history. And I remember being up at night, like Googling just the most bizarre stuff, trying to figure out what this ship was too. You're like, oh, I'm going to beat Boston Historical in discovering this and going through some weird archives and whatever. And that's part of the story. That's part of the making history and keeping history going and allowing people to appreciate the materials, the story, and the quality of something that maybe in past years they would have just turned a blind eye and kept digging and or chucked it into the dumpster like it's cheaper to throw it away. It is, it probably is. I get wood. I don't get a lot of wood for free, but sometimes I'll get wood for free because they're like, well, it's cheaper to give it to you. It's cheaper to give it to you than it is to throw away. And I'm like, if you had any idea what you're giving me right now, but to them it has no value because it doesn't fit, the deadline. It doesn't fit the narrative of what they're building. Hey, we're trying to build this thing, and some of them are building crap. Some people are replacing this stuff with garbage. Now in the town that my shop's in, Kmart Plaza, which enough said. You go to Kmart Plaza now, and they built that thing in the 80s. And I wasn't really around back there. I just heard the stories enough to get upset about it. But they knocked down all these houses, which were historical Victorian houses, and knocked out some forest there too. I don't know. I don't want to make up what trees were in there, but in my passionate mind, they're all chestnuts and white oaks and walnuts. And then those trees have been there for 200 years, 300 years, 400 years. The houses have been there for 150 years. And then they build a Kmart. And I think they built that in 85, 88. So now we're 33, 34 years ago. Their Kmart didn't even last 30 years. It may as well be torn down. It's done. And you're never going to get those houses back. You're never going to get that wood back. You're never going to get those trees back. I'm not so crazy and this activist to be like, oh, you can't wipe a house out. You can't. But I think there's a responsibility to be like, let's make it better. Like, let's take it and how can we improve on it? And like, I wonder if the guy who built that Kmart, now maybe he's still alive and he's retired and he's made all of his money. And he's probably thinking to himself, like, what can I do to give back to my community? Like, what can I do to make my life a little bit more meaningful? What can I do to feel good about what I'm doing every day? And like, I want to go up to him and be like, you could have not built the Kmart. like you, why didn't you think about it back then? Like, I understand we need to build stuff, but isn't there a responsibility to just wiping something out?
I think it comes with time and wisdom and knowledge, knowing you don't value it like when you're little. You don't value a lot of things until you get older and you realize it and you're naive to it. And I think it's when we call ourselves craftsmen, I think it's our duty to, like Nick said before, is assemble great artisans to be able to, create whatever it is that you're trying to do in a house, but at the same time, have the outlets for stuff that you're taking apart, like mantles, staircases, whatever it is I know that there's a half a dozen that I like. If I'm looking for something I want to put into a house, I know where to go. And it's even easier now. It's social, but these guys will come right to your place and take it. I mean, I don't even ask Norris to pay me for it. I go, just give me a credit because I'm going to go take something from your floor at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Give and take. But at least I love walking the floor in there going, oh, that's a piece that we salvaged. It gave new life. But I mean, I wasn't always like that. When I was younger, I didn't know any better. But as soon as I did, drank the Kool-Aid, I've been all in. And like, then you find out like what's not valuable. 2¼ inch oak floors, Yeah, like we don't really need those. It's like, all right, but I tried. I think that's the biggest thing, is that you put enough effort into it that you can walk away comfortable that you've tried. You've done everything. I'm not saying deconstruct an entire house, Nick, instead of knocking it down. I'm saying that there's parts of it. If it's got like a unbelievable soffit and fascia, on the house, like it's an old Victorian, like out of Newton, then yeah, man, try and see what you can do. And I've also gotten quotes. There's guys out there trying to give you tax credits to take stuff apart. And I can't tell you how many hours I've wasted on trying to make those numbers work and time at work. And we're in a world that's against the craftsmanship part. It's not, we're not patient. We don't have time to be. Sorry, my dog just snuck in.
She's not patient.
Well, I mean, I wish I could, like, to Paulie's point, is that I would love to be able to have, I think we all probably spent the money that, 1.5 billion that was in the lottery that time, the mega bucks. It's like, what would I do? I'm like, I wouldn't change my life at all. I'd give money away to people that I think could use it. I even said to my son the other day, if I had money, the cashier that I buy my orange juice from every morning, I'd give that dude some money. Like, just so we wouldn't have to worry about money. I would want to do that. And like, I would want to build cool stuff. I would keep my business. I'd do everything. I would just build it the way I'd want to. Like Nick says, like, I want to build this, modern house and blah, blah. And then all these other things corrupt that mind. Like, but if I had the money, I'd do whatever I wanted. And I think, like, look at Elon Musk. How many people probably said he was crazy until he had enough money to do it? And now he's like the man. You know, people are being held back because of money. Like we had Nook on the other day, and I've been talking about it ever since, that their government subsidizes 50% of the salary of an apprentice. I'm like, we would all have apprentices. I said to one of my clients, he's like, there's like 28,000 people in Australia. That's why they could do it. I'm like, okay, I get it. But I was like, but I mean, just think about if we didn't have that burden. You said like be craftsmanship or whatever, that money part of it, what would change? What cool stuff would come out of that? What innovation would come out of that? It's kind of unstoppable. And you almost can't think about it because it's disheartening.
I'm going to go way left field here.
You won't. Let's do it.
But I don't want to get on a Bitcoin train because I don't totally get it still. though a few people after that podcast reached out to explain it to me. So I appreciate you guys. But I was driving to work the other day and I was thinking, and probably had to do with that. Oh, you know what it is? It's all these NFTs and Bitcoin, like these non-fungible tokens, whatever. I don't know what digital art that people are buying. And
Yeah.
I had a hard time understanding it. And Vaynerchuk said, I'll explain it to you right away. It's like, you ever play this video game? And the kid's like, yeah. He goes, you ever buy something in that video game for your character, like an outfit? And the kid's like, yeah. He goes, that's an NFT. You bought something digital that you can't actually have. The reason I'm talking about this is that the money side of it is I feel like there's going to be this change where we're held back because of money, and what money is to us is coins and these paper dollar bills, right? Like we've decided that stuff has value, like collectively. And it's like, we're talking about like wood, deciding that, some people find value in it and some people don't. These digital currencies and this digital art, people we're collectively now starting to say, hey, that's valuable, and we'll pay $68 million for one of them,
Right.
or $58,000 for one Bitcoin. It's like we're changing what is valuable. And John, like to relate to what you're saying, it's like the fact that we're held back because of money, I just think is way more interesting and screwed up, to be honest, than any of us actually give credit to it. Where it's like what Paulie said, or in what you just said, it's like, if I didn't have to worry about money, what would I do? And probably like I'd go around finding cool wood and building cool furniture. And so many people can never get to that mindset. They can't even.
Your priority would be flipped around. Right now, he has to build furniture to make money, to make a living, and he sources what he has to make that furniture. You'd flip it around and go, I would go find as much as I wanted, and then when I had free time,
right,
I would build the furniture.
Right.
Like, but our priorities would be flipped.
The fact that like none of us, I know I'm like way out here, but it's the fact that that money has crippled so many people. I think a lot of people can't even get into the mindset of, what would I do if I didn't need to worry about money? And for that, strictly for that sense, they get engulfed with this, and then you get so far down this unhappy path. I guess I'm relating it back to like happiness, right? Like trying to, to do what you want, do what what would I do, if I didn't have to worry about paying my guys or paying my mortgage or paying bills or just money in general? What would I actually wake up and want to do every single day?
Yeah.
And how would that change the industry? I mean, like if I were to go out and build the exact house I wanted to without worrying about the risk factor, losing money, blah, blah. I think you'd have an Elon Musk moment in several of them, hundreds of them.
I'm literally getting the chills talking about this, because I'm on the same page. You would do that, like ignore money. It's almost too easy, right? It's almost too easy to talk about, where it's like, John, you know what? Screw it. Just ignore money for the next 12 months. Go out and do exactly what you want. It's going to be this crazy thing that you've never been able to do. And then all of a sudden someone's going to catch wind of it. And then next you're a billionaire.
I wouldn't even want to be a billionaire. But I would just want to be able to change.
The point is you're exactly.
If I got to wipe out Pulte and create something that was more tangible, like I was talking to someone the other day and I'm like, imagine if Home Depot just had different profiles for each, region of the country. That would make me happy inside. Like that they pulled something from like Newton, the baseboard, and this, and it was like I would be able to campaign for something like that would make a difference that anyone, I think this could go super deep, Nick, because I think we're saying it with a hint that we'll probably lose listeners for this, but a privilege. Because like, I remember we celebrated.
I mean, I don't even think it is privilege. I think the fact is,
but there's a whole group of people, we're still able to do what we want, make an impact and get mortgages and stuff like that. We celebrated on Brett Hull's podcast that there was that massive development they did in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know what we forgot to mention? Is that he got the money for that development and the bank said you cannot sell it to black families. And that bylaw is still in effect. So imagine all the stuff we're talking about right now. And then on top of that, there's people that live in these impoverished areas that have it's stacked against them. So when we say this, I say this with privileges that I never have to worry about if I get pulled over if my hands are on the steering wheel or not. My kids won't either. And that's the problem with it, is that no one knows what else these people these areas have to go through.
Yeah.
And that what's stunting their growth and their innovation and what could help the entire world is crazy. And what we say it because I live in a house where I don't really have that much stacked against me. I could probably make it happen.
But the trickle down is like what, like you're separating from the people who have money or have the opportunity to make the money. But what if they were the ones, like somebody picked me up in a new car, and I'm not against like the new car. He was happy. He's all excited about having a new car. And I bought a new car. I bought a new truck. I had to.
You're the one broke down.
My other truck died. It died on the 495, ate that thing up. But what if you could get the same like satisfaction, the same pleasure, like the same dopamine in helping community and doing something good for what's around you. And then the trickle down is like you do that instead of just chasing more money.
Yeah.
And the next person, and then that, the next person benefits from it. And then the next person benefits from it. Like you give back to what you're doing. Like is that what people would do in life if they didn't have to have money? Like, look at all the tycoons of history, like the early Americans. I mean, they went nuts. They went nuts until they realized they had it all. And then all they did for the rest of their life was try to give back the money to libraries, to schools, to buildings, to funding educational programs and stuff like that. But the point that I have is like, what if you could do both at the same time? Like, when is enough enough? When is, okay, I'm gonna make 100, but if I do something a little different, I'm gonna make 80. Oh, I can make 80.
But I think it's finding out what your lifestyle is and living within your means, which is something easily said and not easily done. Because
that's true.
Every time someone does that, I mean, I've done it. We all have grown in salary, but as I do that, I buy a house, and then I have kids, and then they go to a school, and there's all these things that impact the thought process of what do I need to make in my livelihood. I said that in the video we did when I left my last company. It was like, hey, I finally got to a spot where I was comfortable, where I didn't have to worry about if I ordered out food for the whole week if my wife was away and she didn't cook. It was like, it's like these little things is that I think, Paulie, as you're saying that, I'm going, all right, I know for me, it would be to a point where I wouldn't have to worry about money. Like there's that rule, like if you have a year's worth of mortgage payments in the bank, if I was comfortable at a point where I don't know if I want to say rich isn't the word I'm looking for. It's like financially stable where sure. I'm not worried about having to get my next payment to pay a mortgage, like I'm sure. There, I'm already there, but it's more of like, hey, but then do I need to have a beach house? Do I have to have a summer retreat? I think that is really where, and a lot of it is, have you earned that? Have I put enough time in that I want my beach house or vacation? Or is it at a point where, like, I thought about it a lot, was like, is it $1 million enough? Or would I take it and then start developing houses the way I want to? And then what would it take for me to have to then give back to that neighborhood? Like you're saying, there's enough tycoons out there right now. We have stuff going to Mars, but you're telling me we can't solve homelessness in California or anywhere? Like I forget how much of that $1.9 trillion package that's going out, and it has like money going overseas. It's like, what? Rogan said it best. If you want this country to be a leader in the world, then help the weakest people first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could do that tomorrow. We could do that. If we could get some of our best clients, Paul, like, and just go, hey, I need $12 million. This is just a fund. It's tax write-off, whatever. And we're going to try and build some cool stuff, not to show off, but I'm going to build something that I think that Pulte should then do going forward. So that way, middle America, like those houses they're putting up, I'm not knocking them. They're houses that will be torn down in 25 years or more.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, because now we're just wasting all this lumber and all these things are a commodity. We're just taking them down and just putting them back into the cycle. And I used to watch the Tour de France all the time. You ever watch that, not for the bike ride, but you watch it for the farmland and the houses and the buildings and the structures that have stood for hundreds of years. And then you look around your area and go, I don't see it. They're spending $7 million on a library that no one's going to go to anymore. This is my town actually happening. And it's taken 7 years to build. And I'm like, I could have taken that $7 million and revitalized the whole center of town. So it looked like it matched the dates of the year this town was, founded. It's just a shame to me. And that's where, to your point, is I have to be financially stable at a point where my kids are happy and healthy and everything's stable there for me to be able to have enough bandwidth to be able to think beyond my day to day. That makes sense? Like, I would love to do it sooner. It's the same as reclaiming wood out of a house. I would have loved to have done it sooner, but my bandwidth wasn't there and I couldn't see the forest between the trees.
Yeah, I understand. I know. Yeah, I get your point. I think it's a crossroads between when you realize, like, when do you meet that crossroads? Is it when you're 40? Is it when you're 50, 60, 70? Like, when are you like, oh, I'm here and now it's maybe too late. Now it's maybe I knocked down all those houses and built a Kmart that nobody goes to anymore. Like, I'm not against that. I'm not against any of that, because they're following their dream and they're trying to make like their life.
But how can we infect them sooner? We had this conversation, not you and me, but I think I told you about it, where one of my guys that works for us, his dad's a developer in town in Natick. And he's actually developed one of the houses I've talked freely about on this podcast many years before I knew this kid was going to work for me, about how we had this peel and stick brick going on this building. And I sat there at a red light every day going, why can't you just learn how to be a mason?
Yeah.
Like, what was so hard for you to figure that out that you then you'd rather take the time, I want to say it was equal amount of time, I know I'm embellishing it, to go find a product, find the base product, all the things that went into making this a peel and stick tile for brick for the whole place, then instead of just finding a great mason and getting their bid. But I was talking to him and we're talking, it was like 2 Fridays ago. And I'm like, I go, you can't talk to me about product. I go, your family's responsible for half the buildings I can't stand. And he's like, but they get us great rent. And I'm like, is it about money? He goes, it's all about the rent. I came home that night, told my wife, I think I need to fire somebody. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, if it's about the money, and there's not a purpose behind it, then I don't think you're the right fit for our company. And then Monday I turned around and I don't let things stew. And I'm sitting in my chair and I go, so, hey, you rattled me on Friday. He said, what do you mean? I go, I'm having a hard time with you in general right now. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know how we fit. And he's like, no, it's not really about the money, but in a rental market, he goes, otherwise I'd be working for my family. I'm like, good save, solid save. But I still question, as if Tyler was here, the ethos of what he's really in it for, And that's the biggest thing. So if we can affect more people about the story, the details, the little stuff that needs to happen, and that's, I think, the whole point of the podcast was to infect more people that there is a deeper purpose in what we're doing than like someone that's on Clubhouse telling me they put their margin at 46%. Go home and brag to your kid about that. See how far you get. And maybe you do. Maybe you got a kid that's all about that. Maybe you do. But to me, it's like, I can't sit there and go, all right, well, I finished my TPS reports today. this was my big accomplishment for today. And I made the tea. I made the bus at the right time. Like think about your life. If you're going through days and going, all right, if I brush my teeth right now, I'll hit the tea at the right time and I won't have to wait 25 minutes for the next one. And then I'll get to work on time. And maybe, just maybe, that oscillating door, I'll catch it right at the right time where I don't even have to touch it. And then, I'll hit the escalator and it'll just roll up and I won't have to like stutter step to get up the escalator and everything will just work out perfect. And then I'll get my work done. No one will bother me. Imagine that's a successful day. Imagine that. I wouldn't be alive today if that was my day. Like, it's just, that's what some people, that's how they have to make a living. And they were never inspired along the way to want to make a bigger impact than their TPS report. Like, there's so many people that are wasting their mind that they could have something unbelievable at hand, but no one taught them to open that up and to spread it out or try it and fail. And that's what frustrates me, is that, like, that's what I try and tell my kids, like this whole, remember the whole YouTube craze where you get like 13-year-old kids making $14 million a year. It's like someone just went out on a limb. Some parent, I want to say, said, hey, I'm going to buy you a camera, do whatever you want, gave them the freedom to just, there are no boundaries. And they did it. And dude, they were rewarded. They never would have thought. Like, there was that father and son that they cut things open. They cut like basketballs in half. They cut bowling balls. And they're like crazy wealthy now. They're on how they make it. It's like they just had, not the epiphany, but they had the environment of just being comfortable with just throwing shit out there and letting it fail and then continue to going after it. So that way they're awesome. I just wish like that 9 to 5, which I think is less and less now, would be rebelled against more. No?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's about finding what you're passionate about and what would make you happy, like what would give you meaning in your life. And most people, they would start with their family and their community, or maybe their religion, their home, maybe it's vacation, maybe it's exploration. And what if you could make that the most priority of your, like the greatest priority? And then the money aspect, which is a necessity, it needs to happen. But what if we could look around us and be like, let's give each other something. Let's help each other in some way. Let's give back in some category. And in the building, like industry specifically, I walk in and out of a lot of stuff. You know that. Like, I work for a lot of different builders, and the story is the exact same every single time. Like, gotta get it done. When can we get this in? When can we get it out? We're closing on this day. We're doing this. Like, I understand that. I understand, like, but when does it end? And when do you wake up and say, like, okay, maybe I could have done something a little bit more. Maybe I could have been a little bit more responsible. Maybe I could have been a little bit more perfect. That's kind of my pipe dream, I guess. But I've been lucky enough to make it like into what I do. When I was a kid, or really when I was digging dirt, I never in my life thought I'd make furniture for a living. If you would have asked me, like, oh, do you think you'll make furniture professionally someday? I said, no, absolutely not. Like, when I don't need to make any money someday, then I'm going to make furniture, because that's what I wanted to do. All I wanted to do is make furniture. All I wanted to do is go around and get wood and stuff like that. But in my mind, that was so far from being a possibility of actually connecting the two. And in some, course of event and a lot of hard work, and I kind of broke through and married the two. That's the pinnacle. That's the dream. what if people could do that? What if everybody could try to make that into a possibility? And now you get to do something that you love. You get to do something really cool, where even if somebody said, hey, if you never have to make money again, what would you do? And you guys said, like, yeah, I'd be doing like the same stuff. I'd be doing it on my own. I'd probably be making stuff for no client. And that would be great because I wouldn't have to care if anybody liked anything or not. I might not even post it on IG, like maybe not.
Then it didn't happen.
Like, it didn't happen. Yeah, that's what Johnny says. Like, he walks in my shop the other day and he's like, is this on IG yet? No. Well, then it doesn't exist. So, oh God.
Well, you and I have had many arguments about IG.
Yeah. I've been a reluctant subscriber, but now I'm in.
Yeah.
Now I enjoy it.
And it's amazing that you're now infecting others. Not about
dude. I watched
self-promotion.
I watched your I forget what you called it, like the stain and you juice. Had to work the juice. I watched that video like 4 times, and I was just like, that's because I always wondered, and I know I wasn't the only one. I'm sure people were like, I was like that. Now I know, and it was just it was just so interesting. So I agree with John. Keep doing that.
I text him every other day. I'm like, you should be doing this. Like we joked about it yesterday because Jason,
we did.
Jason, our concrete guy, was there, and I'm like, hey, Paulie, don't worry. I don't just text you stuff. I text him too. I saw Jason. I was like, how are you not making skull-faced fire pits out of concrete? That was exactly
this is what living with John is, by the way. You have to listen to his ideas about skull-faced fire pits.
You know that would sell, and then he'd have fun doing it. And then I think like you and I have had conversations about, like we had the podcast, Nick, with Beetle. I was gonna say Beetlejuice.
Oh, is the guy that started as Corbin.
Yeah, and I'm like, Paulie, come on! Like you're telling me we're at a shop. And I'm like, you can't put a minion over in that corner, crushing some amazing tables, and then calling Studio McGee, going, hey, these tables are built out of chestnut, Prince Harry or whatever chestnut, and that this is like amazing, and they don't buy thousands of them, and now you've impacted not even just your bottom line. And we said actually that that's the stuff that would keep the lights on, make you money, to give you more time on the other side of the shop to build whatever came to mind.
Yeah, that's it. And some of the jobs I do, they really fund what I really want to do. And that's the way it goes. Like I just spent money today on something I didn't want to spend money on. And I'm like, well, something else will fund it. I wanted to do this.
The laptop you're on?
No, that's going to get padded into somebody's job.
My next job.
Yeah, I had to buy a damn laptop.
It's all right. We're doing $28,000 on reclaimed on pool house.
Yeah, that's true. There's enough money for me to buy a laptop.
I hope so.
No, there is.
I feel like I think you've had a piece of every house we've built. I feel like
almost. I mean, I usually try to get in there somehow.
Yeah, whether we take something out or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean, Paulie's like, I watch a lot of people on social media, and I've met a lot of people in this industry, some of the best that I call, heroes of mine. But when I see Paul work and I see what he pours into it, like just he's not just because you're on. I mean, you're one of the only friends I know that have been on the podcast with us, and it's like you're the true. I would love to say I'm a master builder or a craftsman, but I can't because you exist. It's those are the things that really changed that. And there's times where I think of Nick in the beginning when I first met him, and it's like I love Nick's ambition, but he was such a craftsman. Not that you lost it, Nick, but we're all talking about how we've kind of organically changed and we go after other things. But same thing, with the crazy beard and framing. And I always joke about that picture you sent me on Snapchat where you try to get me on Snapchat and you're like, Johnny, and there was something about that person. And Paul's been able to then, I don't know how you've done it, and I would love to know. We talked about it here, but how I could shape that so I could do it, and do what I really want to be doing, which is, build again. I know I'm a builder, but I'm not physically building, and that's it's. I think we want to talk about giving back, but if I could just give back to myself and be able to squeeze enough time in the day. Benny actually had this conversation with me today, is doing what I want to do. Like we're going to open a cabinet shop, and I'm like, it's just going to be like 30 hours extra each week for the next 2 months. And he's like, dude, did you just hear yourself? You mean 30 hours a week? I'm like, no, it's probably going to be like a ton of days where it's going to be absolutely crazy to get it underway. But I'm like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to divide and conquer. So it's like, I don't know, for the same reason when you said, hey, at what point do you feel like you're stable enough that you can then, give back? I don't know when that's going to be. Like I keep saying, I'll up my salary to meet what I used to make. And then we get another client, and we get another PM, and we need another truck. And then we're like, we'll take on this endeavor and solve this issue, and we'll do that. What's 2 years going to be? What am I going to try and solve then? What excuse am I going to use that I haven't bought, a New Hampshire house or whatever because I've put this ahead of me? Like I know I want to have a project coordinator, so that way the only thing stopping me right now from building, a home for soldiers that need them. Like I just watched this. We talk about modular, not panelization, modular. These modular buildings go up for some soldiers in Natick, and I'm like appalled that that's what these people have to live in. People that fight for our freedom and our safety live in that piece of shit. They should live in houses that I build for amazing clients. So it's like, how that would be my goal. But I'm like, the only thing that stopped me from doing that is time, but I need someone that can coordinate all that stuff. So I can just brain dump and go. And that's kind of where this next phase gets us, is to kind of still, like Paulie said, how do I do what I'm doing, but also still feed my passion at the same time? So I don't know. I need to see a therapist.
That's why you have a podcast.
I know.
Exactly why we have a podcast.
My wife does not.
This is just your therapy session.
Ever since I read that, it's like, why do guys start podcasts instead of going to see a therapist? I'm like, man, that is so accurate.
What was the other half of that quote, Nick?
What quote?
The one about us opening podcasts.
I don't know.
It was something about girls opening OnlyFans.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't
we
see
sent
that.
it to the three of us.
Oh, did you?
Maybe Tyler found it.
I still think I could start an OnlyFans. I don't think it has to be porn. I don't think it.
I don't know.
I've never been on it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like I guess
account.
who was it? Spencer or someone? They were like, you just do a Patreon. I'm like, I know, but imagine being the only guy on OnlyFans selling like woodworking tools. I mean, woodworking shows or something.
Oh God.
It's like all porn, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, come check out this new build we just built. We're like, what the hell is going on here?
Let's unpack a Festool.
It's like, oh, let's watch this.
Hey, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what funds this.
That's what I'm saying.
Of the modern.
No, this is not what I'm talking about when it comes to giving back.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's a deep conversation because I think we struggle for so long to make our families whole and to be able to financially be stable that way. And this isn't the most stable industry. It has been for the last 12 years, but before that,
define stable, because I don't even know if I would consider the last, I haven't been doing it.
Dude, who would have thought that COVID would hit and then it would ramp straight up? Like,
I still don't. Yes, I guess from an opportunity, but I don't think that it's stable in the sense of health.
Oh no,
like
mentally
it's not a mental
physically.
or physical healthy industry.
Well, I also think that has to do with us not being patient again.
Yeah,
it's like, all right, if I were to take my time, I did. Then now I look back and I feel like I wasted 12 years of my life gaining experience. Well, maybe Nick just rubs that in my face every week when I'm on the podcast, where it's like, no, you don't mean anything in your face. No, you don't mean it, but it's happening. on my terms.
But I, right.
Like,
but
you know
think
what? I didn't need to wait 12 years to learn how everything worked. I can just do it and just accomplish it with the right team. I couldn't get over the.
And I
the
think
team
that's
part.
my effort to ignore the financial side as much, like within reason, right? It's like, again, if we looked at it like, forget money, what would I do? So I think in part the reason I'm trying to move faster is because I'm taking risk, thinking that if I could, I would just ignore money and just go out and buy the property I want to buy, build the house I want to build, and take a risk and see if I could sell it. And all of a sudden, hopefully come out on the other end alive. But instead, I'm trying to do that and support my bills and my family and my business and the families that work here. So it's, I think it's not necessarily because I'm not a very patient person. I feel I too feel like I've wasted a lot of time in my life and in my career. But then you tell me that I'm moving 1,000 miles a minute. And it's like,
I think it's not just me. I think a lot of people tell you that.
Yeah. But it's like, and every once in a while I get to stop and slow down and think about like, all right, yeah, I guess I am. But the other part of me is like, yeah, but I'm still not where I want to be. And if I just had this, and this, I could be where I need to be. So I should focus on that. It's the constant for full circle here. It's trying to make something. How did you, Paul? You said it way better than I did. Make it perfect.
Yeah. Make it perfect.
Yeah. Make it perfect.
Yeah. Bring something into perfection. Like take something. Yeah.
Like, is this how I'm supposed, like, is this what I would define what I'm doing as perfect? Yeah, I got to figure out a better way to say that.
But I think like the 12-year-old version of me, would he think this is amazing? Yeah. Will the 70-year-old version of me think this is amazing? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I think we evolve and our things evolve. And I think my views have changed with having my kids, and
yeah, totally.
It's a whole different, I don't know. I feel like I'm finally on the right course, where I'm happy with the product we're putting out. The team is where we need them to be. And it's just time to, I don't know, it's weird.
It is weird, isn't it? And I mean that like seriously.
No,
and
I said
I think what we do is weird. I think I'm fixated on money being weird. That we're assigning value to things now that you like that are literally digital that you'll never be able to hold.
But don't you think that's already been happening?
Yes, I'm not saying that this.
I haven't carried cash in like forever.
But that's my point, is that we're collectively assigning value to certain things. Coins, pieces of paper, digital art, a plastic card in your hand, whatever. It's like we assign that, like
we're doing that with craftsmanship, like this.
Like, but every single person out there right now is working because we all collectively agree that coins and paper is valuable to us.
There's
we all
some
work
sort of a currency.
No one else is like there's people out there that accept Bitcoin for payment, but no one out there is getting a Bitcoin check. Everyone is accepting paper and coin, like our actual currency. And I know this is I know I'm going on, but that's just it's just weird. I think it's weird.
Dude, the fact that banks, like if you were to cash out, they won't even have the cash.
No.
Because they've taken your money and they've leveraged it 10 times over, doing other things. So the amount of actual physical currency.
I think it's 10%, right?
Right?
I think I heard it was 10%. Like the actual currency is only held up by 10% paper.
Yeah.
So
and I think
Bitcoin is not that far. Yeah, it's not that crazy of a concept.
It's not at all. But it's just,
well,
I don't know.
The next point, it only takes like two more like organizations, like if Apple and someone else also deem that is currency.
Imagine if
guess what? It is.
Imagine if coins and paper just aren't currency anymore. And it's like, oh, you know what? we're actually going to switch to all
You've been in
digital.
too many Bitcoin rooms. I've been in those
I haven't
rooms
been in
too.
any, and it's not even.
We were in one together, and
Well,
we
briefly.
listened to that one.
All right,
and those
one.
guys are like, yeah.
But I get. I'm just.
Financial institutions falling, and Bitcoin is going to be the only currency.
But it's just so weird. Like we all work for the same exact thing. We all work for currency, and it's like, and I don't know why I'm so fixated on it. And I think, you know, like recently I was talking to someone about bartering for something. I was like, I wanted something someone had. And I was like, you know what? I'll barter. Like you need some work done on your house.
Clients do it with us all the time.
And I'm like, why don't it's like people don't leverage that. I don't know. I'm going.
I think true geniuses in the beginning, maybe when they're younger and they can take more risk, they don't see the value in money either. They see the value in ideas and concepts, right. and they're not restrained by that. I mean, look at VCs. People go get VC capital because they want to see some epiphany come to mind. There's ground source. Was it? That's ground source heat pump. No, I was thinking crowdfunding. I've thought about crowdfunding an idea. Like, I want to build this house. Like, put a crowdfund out there and be like, can I gain $1 million to build it?
Dude,
why not?
I thought of the same thing. It's like this house, this just dream house I want to build. It's like, Matt, what if I just collected a bunch of people? Like you said, crowdfund it.
Yeah.
I think why,
they crowdfund a bunch of other shit that doesn't even like, right. I bought that super drone years ago, Lily, that was supposed to follow me around. It was like the coolest drone ever. I bought into that startup.
Dude, I bought into
they walked away with the money.
One of these scales. There's like a digital one that's been in. I funded that thing years ago. Oh my gosh! Not this one, but it's like you press a button and then you draw a line against it on the, like, you basically scale it off the drawing and it digitally comes up with the scale.
I would have paid.
It's so dope. Yeah. But I'm like, I keep getting these updates. And I'm like, it's been years.
My last update for Lily was that they've gone bankrupt and you have to fill out this and this to get your money back. And I was like, well, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
That's why it pays not to own a computer, like I'm still living in the version of playing Settlers of Catan. Like, I'll give you 2 pieces of wood for a brick,
I know, but you should have like 7 GoPros and a couple time lapses.
Yeah, I need to buy some of that stuff.
Actually, I got to give you mine. I have one here.
Yeah, I was like going to buy a GoPro the other day and I'm like, I won't know how to use this anyway. So,
dude, I don't know how you don't have interns either.
Well, the guy I have working for me, he's good. He figures that stuff out. But.
So what do you think you'll be doing in 10 years, Paul?
Yeah, I hope the same. I'm not a business-minded, I don't really have this great business mind, like an entrepreneurial kind of goal to scale and to, I think what I'll be doing is kind of, to be honest with you, I thought what I was doing now, I'd be doing when I was 60. So it's almost like, oh, what am I going to do for the next 30 years, Because I kind of thought when I was semi-retired, I'd start building furniture and I kind of do it. So it's like, what am I going to do? And I think it's just going to be a deeper version of that. Like, now, I don't want to just make somebody a table for 10 grand just because I can get 10 grand for it. I want to get 10 grand for it and then make it worth $10,000, like what more art, what more craft, what more passion can you put into each piece, each thing that will kind of continue solidifying myself as that master craftsman, that artist, always chasing like the next piece, trying to chase perfection and pursue the passion of that thing. If you told me 5 years ago, like in 5 years, people are going to pay you 10, 15 grand to build tables or something like that, I would have laughed at you because I was digging holes, I was digging cellar holes. Now, I don't know. In 10 years, I don't know. I'd probably laugh at you right now if you told me. But it doesn't really matter. That's kind of my point. It doesn't really matter. Like in 10 years, if I live in the same house, if I drive the same car, if my kids are happy, if I'm making something in my shop, it doesn't really matter, because I have sort of this idea of creating, of making, of just putting some part of myself into the wood. If I could do anything in life, like, money aside, our great dilemma, it would probably be chasing wood. It would probably be getting on planes and, going to, different regions, different places, and chasing wood and
I'd
bringing
watch
it
that
back.
show. That's
Yeah.
a great name of a show.
Yeah. I
Chasing
would
Wood.
like chasing wood. And it's funny, like I watched those, like chasing the classic cars and stuff like that and finding the barn finds. And I'm like, man, I wonder why there isn't a wood version of this. Like, I don't know if people would be like, because it's wood.
I watched those barn guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They found, they'd knock barns down, and they were eclectic. They were a bunch. I think that I probably have my own, I'm speaking like Nick, but I have my own production company, and I would just direct stream kick-ass shows like Chasing Wood.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think I would like to. I watch Antique Roadshow and they flip that table over and they say,
of course you do.
And they say, oh, this was built by, Ivan, this guy or that guy in this century. And you can tell it was by him and not one of his workers because he signed it exactly like this. And this thing's worth, whatever amount of dollars, I don't know. And I'm like, how does Paul Charette, how does wood theory get like a recognition like that? The first thing I have to do is start signing the bottom of my tables, that probably.
Probably.
Yeah, I gotta get that part down.
Little things.
I gotta start doing that. But like, how do you get there? And I think the way you get there is by chasing perfection. And it's like everything you do is of value because everything you've done with, like, you've put the value in it. And that's what makes stuff valuable to me. It doesn't become value just because somebody says it's valuable. It becomes valuable because you put the value in it. And even the stuff that I know I can sell for 10 grand or whatever, it's like, oh, I know I can get this because the market's right, maybe the client's right, the situation's right. But how do I make it worth that? How do I give them every dollar that they've spent? And that's how every piece becomes valuable and every piece becomes perfect, is because you put everything, you put everything you could into it, and you put the value into it. That's where I'd like to get, is more like, as an artist, to give back, to do whatever I can around me, and to make a lot of stuff. Like, to make a lot of stuff.
Hey, I'll be there with you.
Yeah, you'll be there. You have no choice, Yeah.
I'll be spitting ideas out.
Yeah.
You can just roll your eyes.
You'll have more business ideas for me. But yeah, I think a lot of people's dream is to scale their business into, something like that. But I don't actually have that.
It's trendy right now.
yeah, that's the dream, like to become famous, to become huge, to scale, to create brand recognition and stuff like that. But even that's why it took me so long to get on IG and to actually like do it, because I was mostly doing it for myself. I was mostly doing it for the person who, you know, was paying for it or wanted me to do it. Like if somebody else didn't like it, that's fine. That was actually fine. I was like that's who I kind of, that's how I started, was that kid in the back of my dad's shop, like creating something, most of it complete garbage, but somehow I was like proud of it. Somehow I was proud of myself. And, you know, somehow I found somebody who liked it, you know? And I think that's been an unbelievable dream, is I can do that. And then I find somebody who likes it enough to pay me to keep doing it, to say, yeah, we love this, make something else, you know? Our recent client, I was making stuff and I think he wanted 6 pieces of furniture or something. And he said, it doesn't matter, Paul, whatever you make, bring it here. You can't make a bad piece of furniture. That's what he said. You can't make a bad piece of furniture, just bring it here. And it's like, that was such a compliment to me. That was such a feel good recognition to the kid who started out in the shed, with somebody who said, whatever you bring, I'm gonna love. And I thought to myself, that's, you know, a bold statement. I think you're putting more faith in me than you should. And I kind of felt like, no, we need to talk about this. We need to, you know, make sure you understand the scale and the sizes and what I'm gonna do. And then as I was making it, I would finish one. I think I made 5 or 6 in 1 week, or yeah, a week and a half or something, which is nuts. I shouldn't have done it. And I'd be like, I love it. And I'd put it there and I'd be like, yep, that's going to be right. And then I'd go to the next one. And there was one, the last one, I had to think about it for the whole time. It was just driving me nuts on what I was going to do. And because there were no designs, no drawings, nothing, zero, just whatever you make for this foyer, you can't make a bad piece. That's the only thing I was going on. And I think the success that I have, or that I have had and do have, is that that's true. I can make a bad piece. Like I can make bad furniture, but you're never going to know about it. Like I'm never going to drop it off. I'm never going to bring it to you and pee on your leg and tell you it's raining. You know, like I'm going to throw it in the garbage until it's right, until I make something that I love. And I remember delivering all that. That was like two weeks ago. And each piece, it was like, oh man, you nailed this. And we love this. And wow, we love this. Hey, how about let's go look at some other stuff or whatever. That's the best story I could write, you know? And then you tell them the story, you tell them the quality. And yeah, if I could be doing that in 10 years, I'd be all set. I'd be a very happy person. And that's my business goal is to keep on creating. And maybe someday somebody flips over a piece of furniture that was signed, you know, Wood Theory Design by Paul Charette, and says, oh wow, this was done by him. Like this is a piece that he created. This is wood that he was passionate about. This was material that he dried out in his bedroom. And that would make me feel good. Yeah.
I think that person's going to be like, why isn't it signed Skinny Jeans, Polly? I want that series of furniture. So in our builds, it's funny, the story about the client, no bad furniture. It's not like that's the only time it's ever happened. Like the build we're on right now, it started with beams.
Yeah.
And you've probably created, I don't know how many pieces of furniture.
Yeah, I don't know. Doors and
doors, tables.
Yeah.
Desk coming soon, maybe.
I call them addicts, and I say, oh, you're an addict, like once I get in, it's tough for me to leave.
It's amazing.
It's good.
I think that's why I selfishly I wanted like whenever I get to hang out with you, it's like I'm a different speed than you, and I'm always jealous of how kind of nonchalant you are about it. Even craftsmanship, how you create stuff is like, dude, like I have to work at stuff to make it right. You just kind of effortlessly, maybe it's not effortless to you, but it appears that way. So whenever I'd try and push you on social, it was like, man, I want you to affect more people, because I'll infect certain types of people. You'll infect a lot more people, the right people. And it was always a bummer to me. I think we've always said it even before I started Vintage, was that it's a shame that what you're doing is between you, me, and the client.
Right. You say that all the time. In my mind, it's not a shame, but but I get what you're saying. And now I'm beginning to adopt that as more truth. But in my mind, if I was happy, the client was happy, and the builder was happy, or the designer was happy, that was enough for me. That was the recognition I needed. But I love the experience now of like sharing passion and sharing like wood and the art of the material and craftsmanship. And I think that it's definitely a dying trade, even turning. I know a lot of carpenters, like really good carpenters, never turned in their life. And I'm just a moderate hacker from Lunenburg. And I'm like, yeah, like, how could I not turn? Like, this is what I do for a living. Like, I don't know how you could not do it, It's like, and those forms of craft now get to live on, and I really enjoy it. I like the pace too. It's an easy life,
I was on the phone with somebody from social media that day, and they were we talked a little bit about social, and they were having a hard time, putting themselves out there. And I kind of, if I could get it where if I'm not so infected by my clients and like posting on one job and knowing that my clients will see it and go, what about my job? Is he valuing them more than me? There's a lot of BS that goes on with social media. I think in my eyes, in my world, is that it's like I've just stopped posting. Like I'll stop posting until a certain job's done. Like there's certain things, dynamics that I don't want to deal with because social media gets in the way. But it disheartens me a lot, because I think of social media when I tell people about it. And this guy I was talking to the other day was, it's the Jesse scenario, Nick, is that like my boys, like I'll be Grampy, and then those kids will be, their kids will be able to watch me, and I could somehow influence my great grandkids, after I've passed, because they could be like, hey, you know what Grampy, my dad was like this. And then you could flip on this channel, maybe IG's not there, whatever, maybe it's saved, it's YouTube, and that's never happened. Like I can think of my grandpa from a black and white photo, and I'm supposed to pull personality out of that. And people are all about 23andMe and, all this other stuff. Imagine that couple, life cycles from now, they're still able to capture your essence in a video. That's what I would love to get back to social media doing. And I've completely lost it. It's basically unplugged for me for so many other reasons that have nothing to do with social or my passion.
it's going to be unprecedented. Imagine, like, to your what you're saying, imagine being able to watch your grandfather on his archived Instagram, like doing whatever he was doing. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's going to be unprecedented. Like to have our kids and grandchildren, like great grandchildren, be like, oh, my grandfather was this, my grandmother was that. It's going to be great. It's amazing.
Yeah, like our kids 100 years from now will be like, they were right. Money's nothing. Like, like, they listen to this podcast. I don't know. We've been getting deep on podcasts, but it's something that's, man, I like it a different way if I could serve it up. Nick was just like 7 miles away from his mic.
I'm just taking it in. This one got deep, and I'm over here in deep thought, and I don't know. Like I do every time we hang up this show. It's like I drive home. I'm like, what the F am I doing? Like in good ways and bad ways and in different ways. It's just
like, what are you worried about today?
What am I worried about?
Like what's making you question or rethink something today? I feel like you're on the right path.
I don't think I'm on the wrong path. I feel as though I make, how do I put this? I feel as though I could be putting more effort to things that would allow me to grow faster, more successfully, faster. Is that right?
Yeah.
Like I feel as though I think I waste time doing other things when even though I know my focus should be elsewhere.
But so, what are you measuring success by? Like, what's your
the ability to wake up and do what I want? That's my success, not the mega yacht. I want the mega yacht, but that's not success.
We haven't tagged each other in one in a while.
Mega yacht's awesome, man. I'd be fine just making a friend with a mega yacht guy. But you know what? In total side subject, but part of me wondered. There's this guy called Mr. Mega Yachts on Instagram, and I've thought about it a lot. Where I'm like, I wonder if he even like is like a mega yacht guy. Or owns a yacht, or did he just choose to, hey, Instagram's a thing. You know what I want to be? I want to be the mega yacht guy. And he just went full force into it. Right. He went full force into it. And now he travels the world checking out mega yachts, hanging out on them because he's the guy that's promoting them all. We're going, forget it. I define success.
The best podcast ever.
As to waking up and doing what I want, not waking up and constantly course correcting things.
Right.
Like in your life or on the projects?
Well, I think that's
you're blending the two, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely blending the two. I think in business. No, I want to wake up. I want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I want to get a solid workout in. I want to enjoy my breakfast, see my family, and go to work, and then crush the day. And then come home and be with my family and do that, 5 days a week. And then on the weekends, it's 100% family. And I want to do, and I want to do that and not be, not spend 5 days and more than 50% of my time during that 5 days dealing with course correcting people within the business or unhappy clients or mismanaging expectations. And all of those things, I think, are correctable. It's about putting the right people in place and the right processes in place. And I don't mean that I have to write a book about how to run my business. I just mean that there's things in my business that I know can be improved to prevent a lot of these.
But do you think the magical word from this podcast is patience?
Yeah, I think the magical word in life is patience. But I do think I am a patient person.
For like 7 seconds.
With an asterisk of I'm also very impatient. Like I'm I respect patience, I guess is the better way to put it. I respect that I need to be patient. I respect being patient.
It's
But
such a great answer. I respect you. I don't
but I
agree
don't
with
want you.
you.
Yeah,
I don't agree with you.
I don't want you, but I respect you.
I just love how you were like, I could be more successful faster. And it was like, I wish when I met you, I had asked you kind of what your goal was. So I could then
I better
bring
change.
that back up now.
Right.
Is what I wish.
I just, like,
because I feel like you'd be really happy where you are. And I don't think this was even tangible. And I think,
I think to relate it to something that we talked about earlier, I am happy where I am, but I'm frustrated with, the shitty email that you get, and it's like, and I hate how much space that takes up in my mind. And it's like, and it's unnecessary. It's like, I had this talk with one of my project managers. It's like, or my assistant project manager. And I was like, you have to, it's much easier for me to explain too, right? It's like, you have to step away from what is going on in the project and look at it outside. You're letting that project like dictate the way your life is going, to the point where it's like, you're so unhappy, where it's like, at the end of the day, I mean, this isn't going to kill you. Like it, and I've said it to you, John. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? If I make a mistake, I go out of business, big deal. I lose my house, big deal. Like, it's not like, that's not the end of life for me.
Right.
It's, yeah, it sucks. It's not what I want. Like, I'm certainly hoping that it doesn't get to that point. But if I lost everything, that wouldn't, I don't think I'd look back and be like, man, I really wish I didn't do that. I think if I am true to myself, that I would be like, you know what, then this is the course I chose. I'll go from here. But it's the unnecessary, space that negativity fills in my mind with what goes on in work, that, I have to constantly remind myself to say, stop. Like, what's the biggest like, what's a big deal? Like, okay, the client doesn't pay you, big deal, you'll figure it out. The client's pissed off, it's like, did you do your best? Yeah, okay, well, then you are never going to, live up to their expectation, and you have to accept that. And it's like, and you can't spend the next week or 2 weeks worrying about how you're going to come out of this, because at the end of the day, you're going to look back at this in 6 months and laugh at it and be like, yeah, that sucked. Yeah, I lost money. Yeah, I lost sleep, but like, it didn't put me out of business. Or maybe it did. It did put me out of business, but I still have my house, still have my, like, you, and that's the hardest thing. So what worries me is the fact that I think I believe I can correct a lot of that with restructuring the way I do things, and looking back at like why I'm in certain positions I'm in, and realizing that, okay, well, maybe I went about that the wrong way, and if I had done this, I wouldn't be there. So that's kind of what I mean about being impatient. It's like,
that's the experience part.
of course, 100%.
I think I look at it where I'm actually happy right where I am, probably where I was a couple of years ago. Like, I'm like, Paulie knew me back when I was building other stuff with other people, and I loved what I was building, and I loved the people I was with. And I look back, and like, my wife said to me, like, when are you gonna get that done? When are you gonna get this done with the house? And not like in that tone. And I remember I said to her, I'm like, I'm actually really happy with my house, even if it's unfinished. And like when I grew up in a house that was a duplex that my mom rented. And we joke about it. Like, I had a milk crate and a bean bag with no beans in it. Like, that was like, I'd sit in this thing and it would just like fluff around me with air. And I've come miles from that. Like, I own my own house. I went to college, and that was the first person in my family to do that. And it's like, I've made these accomplishments, and you know what? And I build amazing houses. I'm not a carpenter anymore. So really, to go back to that, privilege in 1%, I'm already there. And now for me to do my house is like the bonus. You get me? Like to try and make it to be the same quality of what I build is just icing. You know, my kids are healthy, they're happy. Like I think about that all the time. Like when you're at dinner and your kids are being annoying and they're just laughing like crazy, and like my wife had us through COVID, we sit at the table and we eat dinner and it's absolutely hilarious. Like 3 out of like I don't know how many times my oldest has laughed so hard that his drink is shut out of his nose onto his plate. And it's like, that's what I'm good.
Right.
Like I'm 100% good. And now I look at it, Nick, I don't know if this relates to you, but I have almost a 14-year-old. Like it is so, people say it's short, bro. We have them till like 18. And that, like, I'm realizing I only have 4 more years where we're buddies. And don't get me wrong, I'll be able to watch them grow up and have their own family. But man, I think the regret that I think about now every day is that, did I make my company or my career more important than I didn't know I didn't make it. I didn't value what I had as a family, you know, like, and that I didn't take opportunities like for those moments. That's really where it's like, God, I've been trying to do this house where, and I'm not even doing it for me. Like I said before, like I want to have a great room and a patio. So like we can have hockey parties here. So they can have friends over here. It's like, they could do that now, but I'm really just, it's only icing. And I guess in all essence is that I guess I was happy probably 5-6 years ago. And now I should just be grateful that that's it. And now I think I accept those challenges, like those shitty clients and in those situations where an employee doesn't produce what they say they're going to produce. And I accept those challenges. And maybe that's what feeds me on a daily basis. And that's going to be like, Paulie wants to build this furniture, and he's found his little, pocket of happiness. And maybe my pocket of happiness isn't being as calm and cool as Paulie. Whenever I call him, I'm like, oh, I need to slow down, I need to take an edible that he had and just chill.
Oh God, don't
do him.
No.
I know. But it's like, maybe I should just appreciate what I have more often.
Yeah.
That's what I get stuck on a lot. Maybe because I'm.
Yeah, I would
on the
agree
back
with.
nine.
I would agree with that a lot, John. And I think the one thing I'd like to add to what I just said is that it's not so much that I don't want the challenges with clients. It's that I don't want my mindset to be so negative around them, and shift my mindset into celebrating it and as a challenge, like you just put it, where it's like, it's the cards I've been dealt based on the hand that
You've created.
I've created. So, I can't dwell over it. I have to work with this. And that's, I mean, I don't hate that part. I hate the part that my mind focuses so negatively on it. That's what
I hate the fact that you're partially alone in that game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very lucky that I have Benny and I have Paulie that I can use as a sounding board every time he makes a delivery. But like, I don't know, you're a big enough company with enough people, man, you need a sidekick. You need a Robin to your Batman.
What if I want to be Robin?
Dude, then be Robin. Just have a Batman then. Like, I think you were the sidekick, or partner in crime would be unbelievable. What's that?
That I'm a terrible passenger. I'm definitely
always flipping the music channel. I don't know.
All right. Well, I got a lot to think about. All good.
Yeah, it's good.
Paul, you did a hell of a job, man. But not having a laptop,
mic, and having 3 different fake Zoom apps on your brand new computer.
Is Best Buy still open? Because I'm gonna box this stuff back up.
Still got the film on the screen.
He's like, yeah. I also bought a laminator so I could re-laminate the Apple box.
He's a heat gun. You got that?
Yeah, I got a heat gun. I'll bring it back to Best Buy. It'll be cooked. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna crawl back into my hole and be happy there.
Paul,
You're
thank you for
a
being on,
legend.
man.
Thanks for having me. I love you guys a lot, and you already know that, but I like what you guys are doing and the way you're helping. You both helped me a lot, and you're helping the community, and I think you're both doing a little bit of what we are talking about as you go, like being able to look back and kind of say, oh, yeah, that's what I would have been doing. That's what I would have been doing. If I could have gotten up every morning and done whatever I want, that's some of what I would have done. And that's it. You're not going to get it all. We're not going to be able to get it all. It's not like I get it all. But if you can get a little bit, then you can look back and say, yeah, that's what I would have done. And I think that's kind of part of this being happy and doing something that you love and doing something for somebody else. You guys are doing it. You just, maybe you don't see all of it.
I think you're right. And I appreciate that. I think why you say that, I'm like, maybe sometimes we should be happy with a taste.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. You can't get it all. Nobody can get it all. Even the most rich, they still have to do something they don't want to do. But if you can narrow it down a little bit more and a little bit more, then I think you arrive at some sort of a pinnacle of perfection, of the perfect day, the perfect job, the perfect family, or whatever you're going to do. The best job I ever did in my life was 2 weeks ago. I cut down an apple tree, which I have to explain why I cut it down. I would never cut down an apple tree on any other circumstance, but the thing was dead. And I tried to transplant it because I had to put a new septic system, and I nurtured this thing for 2 years, trying to keep it alive, and eventually I couldn't save it. So I had to cut it down. And so I brought I have 2 boys and 1 girl. They're all out there, and we cut down the apple tree, and then I brought it with them to a guy in a mill, and had it cut, and now I'm gonna go pick it up. And I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I already know that's the best job that I've ever done in my life. And I've made some great stuff. I've sold some great stuff. I started out working on Tom Brady's house. And I know I'll make a lot of other great things. But till today, that's the best that I'll ever do. And it was because it was something that I woke up and I said, this is what I want to do today. That was on a Friday. I probably had a million other things that I should have been doing, and a lot of people who were blowing my phone up and this and that. But I hope someday that apple tree, it's a huge apple tree, so I'll get some big slabs out of it, and I'm gonna dry it out in my son's bedroom and give him a moisture reader. That's the best job I think I'll ever do. And it was because like I wanted to do it, and I loved it, and I was passionate about it. If I could send a message to anybody, it would be like that. Like, choose your best day, your best moment, access your inner 12-year-old self with whatever you were passionate about, and hold to that as much as you can. Just keep narrowing it down. And that's what's given me some of the most happiness in my life. And I've been lucky enough to do it professionally. And I hope other people are too. I really do. I love you guys a lot. It's been like a good ride with you, Johnny, and Nick, you too, and Tyler. I was hoping to meet Tyler, but Tyler too. I follow him, and he's great with everything.
You're the real deal, man.
Yeah, you're awesome, brother.
Thanks, guys.
All right, dude.
This is gonna be a good one.
Best Buy closes at 10. I just checked. So
I'm on my way. You think I'm joking, but
I want a picture, but do it on your story.
well,
I want
am
you to
going.
story
Well, it
return.
didn't happen.
I do have to give these headphones back tonight because the guy's a salesman and he wears them all day. I picked them up at 5:30 and drove here, and I'll definitely be returning all the others.
You were amazing.
The MacBook Pro though, my wife's been wanting for like 4 years.
You're welcome.
She's like, so then I went out and bought it. And she's like, you son of a bitch. you bought this for the Modern Craftsman, but you wouldn't buy it for me. Like, all the money we have, and you wouldn't buy a new. I said, no, you have the check. You have the debit card. Just go and buy it. No, she won't do it. She's like, I have to be the one. So this whole thing got me in a lot of trouble.
And no one's even heard it yet.
Yeah, and
so
3 hours later, you're still going. So
oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I'll send you the photos of the return.
perfect.
I'll
dude,
post it.
you're an absolute rock star.
Thanks, guys.
All right, dude.
See you on the next
Disconnecting
one.
it already.
See you on the next one.
He's been unscrewing it the whole time, slowly.
The thing just came off. Now I gotta fix that before I return it.
All right, man.
See you
well.
guys.
We'll talk
Yeah,
soon.
See you, brother.
Yeah, see you, John.
That was good, man.
Yeah, Paul's
I
on
feel
a
like my
frequency.
face hurts from smiling so much. Right
Same.
now. It's like he just went down these like rabbit holes, and they
That's
were
where
just
he's
so
at.
good. I kept sitting back and just I'm leaning back, reenacting what I was doing, and just listening. It was just so good.
Yeah, I feel like I know he was not nervous, but he definitely thought about the podcast a lot, and I wish it wasn't like people get anxious when they come on with us. I feel like, and part of it is I wish you could see Paulie on a daily basis.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's my fault that I don't do more stories with him, because I see him right every other day now. I feel like, but he's definitely a true craftsman, and he I think he'll be a legend in this industry. The more he publishes stuff.
he's a good dude.
Solid as a rock.
So I got a favor to ask. We're 866 ratings on iTunes. And I know we ask every week for you guys to hop on there, but this time I'm really asking with a pretty please. We'd love to get to 1,000 by the summer. I think we're going to be doing a pretty substantial giveaway when we hit that 1,000 number. So if you guys haven't already, hop on iTunes, hit that 5-star. And if you want to give us some constructive feedback because you think we could do a better job, hit the link on our Instagram, our Survey Monkey. We got a ton of responses on there. You guys can vote on who to bring for future guests. We do our best to, John does his best to comb through that, figure out who might be on that list and get them on the schedule. But seriously, guys, if you could hop on iTunes and keep us in the top spot for our industry in podcasts, it would be much appreciated. And if you guys do post, hit that rating and want to screen grab it, we'll share it on Instagram during the week on our stories. All right, guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. The folks at Duration proudly welcome their latest stocking dealer of Duration beveled siding products. Connecticut-based powerhouse Rings End, a family-run company with a rich history dating back to 1902, is now stocking the beveled product in its Darien, Bethel, and Niantic locations for the convenience of their customers. To learn more about Duration Poly Ash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com. Be sure to check them out on Instagram.